Very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Researching Academic Integrity Student Research Conference. I will bring my screen to the forefront, which has just a few slides as introduction while we get going, but most of this afternoon is going to be devoted to our wonderful students who are presenting the research that they've been working on during this term. But we are also recording this, so people will watch this afterwards. So just to give you a little bit of background, if you don't know very much about this module, and I think the people who are here live probably do know a little bit about this, but this is a module that we've been running now for 5 iterations, but this year it has changed its name from previously being called Academic Integrity in STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics, and Medicine, to now being called Researching Academic Integrity in an Artificial Intelligence-Driven World, which becomes much more difficult to say than the old title. But yeah, frankly, it's the direction we've been moving in. And anyone who's been following academic integrity research will know that the current discussions are so dominated by the use of AI. But I'm also really interested in personal use of Gen AI as a very positive thing where we can do interesting tasks, where we can improve our efficiency with research as well, with various safeguards and ethical considerations in place. And I've just grabbed this picture from our Blackboard site, and that is a real me, unlike sometimes, but it is not a real background. I can't remember what I asked to be in that artificial background, but it looks like lots of brains or something like that going on behind. So this is the 5th time we have run this module with my very imperfect, fast PowerPoint formatting there. We did a pilot year, and then we've had 4 more proper runs, moving at one stage between the autumn term and the spring term. As I mentioned, this is the slightly renamed version of the module of this year, our 4th undergraduate student research conference. And the model has changed and developed every time about that, not least because this has been such a fast-moving field. We went through COVID to artificial intelligence to many interesting research topics. And if you are interested in a bit more of the background behind this module, I did a webinar towards the end of last year for the International Centre for Academic Integrity, which talked a lot about the module development and the type of things going on for that there before we renamed it as Researching Academic Integrity in an Artificial Intelligence-Driven World. So do feel free to check that out, although you may have to be an ICAI member. I'm not sure quite how it is set up at the moment for that there. Uh, now, apart from that, I'm going to give a few thanks before we start officially as well. First of all, Dr. Lorna Waddington from the University of Leeds, historian. Some people may know Lorna. She's also part of the London and South East Academic Integrity Network that I coordinate. For anyone outside the UK, Leeds is not very close to London and the South East, but we meet online and we're fairly flexible for people who'd like to join. She gave a really interesting presentation about Gen AI academic integrity from a historian's perspective. And if you do get the chance to see her speak, then she's quite fascinating, talking about all the challenges with Gen AI in history, about fake data, fake results being generated as well, things that historically couldn't have happened for that there, and many other areas for that. So great to get a different perspective because we're at Imperial very much a science, technology, medicine university. So we don't necessarily see the more traditional written side of things for that. Thanks also to Turnitin, who are supporting this event and are sponsoring a prize for one of the student groups who are presenting today. One of the slight downsides is I do have to mark people as we go through, but it is quite light touch marking because really this is almost a pass-fail module the way it's set up as an option across many different parts of Imperial taken by 2nd and 3rd year students. If you are interested in a By the way, I'll give a quick plug for a webinar I'm delivering next week. Hopefully the QR code works, with Steph Allen, who has set up the Academic Integrity webinar series in association with Bournemouth University, and a record number of logos that have managed to fit on this slide. But I'm sharing this one quite coincidentally because what I'm going to present is an example I developed as part of the module. So the students here have already seen this. It'll be a slightly different format when I present this next week for a wider audience, but really, I mean, to me, quite fascinating. I've had a few new mini research studies I've developed this year as part of the module as well. Uh, One nice thing, it's also a bit of an incentive for me to do a bit of research as we go through. So feel free to register and join that. I'm sure it will be recorded as well. Apart from that, the chat is open. Feel absolutely free to post in the chat there. I will try and monitor everything once I stop sharing my screen as well. And the presenters, any issues, please do post in there. You can share that just with the host and panelists too, which is me and the other presenters. I am sure there'll be a few people who struggle to find their way in, as can always happen with these kind of things, because it's quite an unusual piece of technology. Now, my final slide, because this session is not about me, this is what I'm anticipating as the running order this afternoon here. So we've just started off with this brief welcome to set a bit of context. And excuse me, I'm glad I'm not talking very much today. We've got 6 presentations going through to about 7 p.m. Feel free to dip in and out as time permits. I recognize many of the names of the people in the attendee list, but not everyone. So do feel free to introduce yourself as well if you'd like to do so. But you might say the pattern that has come through, perhaps partly guided by me, has been very much about GenAI this year, which is no surprise for that, really, because as I said earlier, it's what we are all talking about right now. At the same time, there's a bit of information on contract cheating, which is a research area that I'm been a bit associated with, well, for many years in the past, as I know other people who I can see in the attendee list have done as well there. But it's quite a wide-ranging set of presentations. I have seen bits of these before today. I have not seen the finished presentations. I've not seen every bit of research. So it will be always interesting how all of this turns out as well. For that, I stress everyone here presenting as an undergraduate student in the 2nd or 3rd year. This is one of, I think, 4 or 5 modules, depending on department, they're taking at the same time. So I'm always impressed at how much work people are able to get done in that time as well. But it may not be the completely finished, perfect article in every case, but there again, I'm just back from the International Centre for Academic Integrity conference last week, and even then, not everything is a perfect finished article. I don't think even my talk would count as the perfect finished article. So I hope that's useful as a bit of background to where we are here. I will just put my screen down for the minute. If anybody, as I mentioned, feel free to use the chat here. I will also just look at my various other windows open in case anybody is having any challenges joining, but this all looks good to me. So in about a minute's time, we'll be able to start off with our first team of people who are talking about revisiting the AI misconduct readiness ratings of UK university. Hi, Tony. I see there. So hopefully what will happen now is everybody just comes on camera, then you will appear to the audience. That's how I think it should work. If it doesn't work like that, then let me know. I see we've got 4 very keen people. We've got Tony, Emma, Ray and Adam. Tony, you're there very organized as well with your screen up. That is brilliant. for that there. Right, and that's all good. And yeah, the only other thing, of course, is just remember to unmute when you speak. But I will hand over to you just to talk a bit about the background of this and what you've been researching on. I'll also hide myself away so I'm not too distracting, but I'm in the chat and I'm certainly listening. All right, so do go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lancaster. I hope you can all hear me well. My name is Tony Aloysius, and this is the project that we've been working on over the past few months. So we've been trying to reevaluate the policies of UK universities post-implementation of AI-related rulings, these rulings that they've made to control academic integrity breaches. And mainly it's a reevaluation or a reassessment of how prepared UK universities are to AI-related academic misconduct. So my name's Tony. I'm a second-year medical student here at Imperial. Speaking after me will be Emma, and then after that, Adam with the results, and Ray with the discussion and the conclusion. So I'll just get started because there are quite a few slides to get through. So if we go through the background, I thought it'd be quite important to have just a foreword on artificial intelligence as we're the first group to present. So on the left is an image from an article written by Sam Altman, who is the OpenAI CEO. And so AI, particularly GenAI, has been gaining a global reception since late 2022 with the public availability of large language models such as ChatGPT developed by OpenAI. And despite its fairly new inception, the ease and foreseen power of ChatGPT has allowed it to rise very quickly as an everyday tool in education, work, fun, and advice. So ChatGPT users have quadrupled from February 2023, from 100 to 400 million weekly users. However, there have been a lot of debate on AI in the media and elsewhere. And so Mr. Altman from OpenAI believes that AI will help accomplish more than humanity could. And with these new abilities, we could have a shared prosperity. However, lots of other people disagree with this view. For example, the media proclaimed godfather of AI and the Nobel Prize laureate said that the reality is that we live in a capitalist society. And so that what's going to happen is that this huge increase in productivity that AI gives us is going to make much more money for those big companies and the rich, and it's going to increase the wealth gap, essentially. And so I guess the slide is mainly trying to say that there are so many differing opinions on AI and what it could do for us. And this extends also into universities and policy. And that's probably why it makes it so hard for UK universities to come up with policies that are long lasting and can be used effectively. And then this slide is also just to show how much interest ChatGPT and AI has garnered over the last few years. So on the left, you can see the data from 2022 to 2023, and you can see the rise of ChatGPT, and we all know how impressive just how popular it's been. But we can see on the right, actually, it's grown in so much more popularity, and everyone has heard of AI, and most likely everyone here has used GenAI in some sort of capacity. And now I want to talk about the rationale of our study. So we know that the rapid advancement of GenAI since late 2022 has significantly impacted academic integrity in higher education. I'll go further into this. And so we looked at a study in 2023, which assessed the preparedness of UK universities in addressing AI-related academic misconduct. And the study revealed that there were widespread gaps in UK universities' policies and their enforcements. The study is referenced below. And the key findings from that study showed that most universities lacked clear definitions of AI-related academic misconduct. AI misuse was often classified under contract cheating or third-party assistance without specific AI regulations. The study developed an AI misconduct readiness rating, which we'll go through in this presentation, and it showed that universities on average were not sufficiently prepared to handle AI-related challenges. Policies varied significantly, with some institutions implementing vague guidelines while others providing no explicit AI policies at all. So this is what we wanted to revisit. which we'll go over more in the methodology. But I also just wanted to speak briefly about, how impactful AI has been in the uni space. So on the top left, I read an article from Stanford from late 2023, which showed that which said that in surveys, 60 to 70% of students have reported to it having engaged in at least one cheating behavior. And this statistic has only been growing. And I guess the real issue that universities face, as mentioned by a Department for Education spokesperson in the UK, is that GenAI has the great potential to transform the higher education sector, and it provides exciting opportunities for growth. However, integrating it into teaching, learning, and assessment will require careful consideration. Universities must determine how to harness the benefits and mitigate the risks to prevent students for the jobs of the future. The article from Stanford also mentions that universities and higher education centers have considered putting significant amounts of money in AI detection software, but studies show that these can often be unreliable. Some schools have also tried blocking AI chatbots from their school Wi-Fi and devices, but then repealed these bans because they were ineffective. And the truth of the matter is, AI is not going to go away. And so, along with addressing the deeper reasons why students cheat, we need to teach students how to understand and think critically about this technology. And so why would AI be used to cheat? So I've adapted this slide from the 2023 study, and there are three main reasons outlined by Holden and others, referenced below, on why students might cheat, and that's opportunity, incentive, and attitude. And AI is the perfect example of why somebody might choose to cheat. So the difficulty of regulating AI empowers opportunity. There are so many powerful and free tools, and they're so convenient to use. Instead of writing an essay, a 5 to 10 word prompt would probably write the whole essay for you. There's incentive also. So the ease of usage and accessibility of AI make it a viable and powerful tool for misuse that can easily help complete assignments. And attitude. So without strong UK policy, soft approaches and vague definitions can promote a cavalier attitude within students. And AI has become so integral to modern workflows that the line between use and misuse becomes more blurred. And also just to think about how many AI tools exist. So there's so many AI tools and they extend far beyond just ChatGPT. So there are obviously AI assistants such as ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Gemini, Claude. But there's also video generation and editing. There's research services such as OpenAI's Deep Research, writing softwares, of course, image generation, graphic design, coding, app builders, presentation creators, music generators, translation services. And we can see in the top that from the 13th of March 2023, a website listed 8,800 AIs to complete 2,300 tasks. However, now there are over 31,000 AI tools that can complete around 14,000 tasks. So why did we complete the study? So again, just to remind you of the 2023 study, despite AI's obvious threats to academic integrity, the study showed that a sample of 50 UK universities in 2023 had very little policy on AI. So we wanted to reevaluate the readiness using the tool that they created, the AI MR, to manage academic misconduct. And then for those universities with the AI-related policies, we wanted to understand the similarities and differences in the approaches used to deal with academic misuse. And then we wanted to see if we could identify strengths and weaknesses in policy documents and potentially highlight areas of improvement and future research areas. So I think those are all of my slides, and I'll now hand over to Emma to talk about how we conducted the study. Thank you.
Hi. For the methodology, we decided to proceed with this research in a similar way, if not identical way, as the previous researchers did, so that we had a consistent comparison. Um, but the first step that we did was data collection. We decided that it was more accurate and more consistent, again, to take the same 50 universities, so the same top 50 university thing, which is the complete university guide from 2023. We then separated the tasks. I took the first 20, Tony analyzed the next 10, then Ray, and finally Adam took the last 10. So to find the accurate and the most important documents, we searched the name of the uni followed with academic integrity / misconduct policy. So we didn't only just look for PDFs, because we also looked at all of the web pages, because we have found that they are now a bit more used to the use of AI, and so usually have now dedicated web pages. So we also went through all of those, and then we either downloaded or screenshotted the most recent policy PDFs. We then did the data analysis. In this, we usually search through the PDFs or the dedicated website pages for these specific keywords, which are AI, artificial intelligence, chatbot, and third party. So in those dedicated sections, we also looked at the consequences of such misconduct and if the universities saw it as an offence or not. So next slide, usually you can, oh, I think I'm lagging. Okay. So then in step 3, as Tony had mentioned, we use the AIMR rating system. So this system basically ranks each university from a ranking of 1 to 4, 4 being the least prepared and 1 being the most prepared. So as you can see on this document, so 4 is, if you have a ranking of 4, the university usually doesn't mention AI. It's the definition of it is not clear. It's not really seen as an offense or anything of importance. If the university has a ranking of 3, it means that it's mentioned, but it's not necessarily very clearly defined. And usually under the term of third-party assistant or web-based companies, nothing very peculiar. If you have a rating of 2, it is usually mentioned, but only in the student guidelines and not in the academic policies. So it's not necessarily seen as an academic offense or misconduct. And if it has a ranking of 1, it's usually mentioned and clearly defined as an offense in policy documents, considered as academic misconduct, and usually there are examples given and much more. So during the data analysis, we use the keyword searches made during this data processing and this rating to be able to make an Excel sheet. In this Excel sheet, it encapsulated and explained the rating of each university in comparison to the previous study made in 2023. So we determined that the policy accounts for AI-based academic misconduct, how it does or doesn't cover it, if any keywords show up, in what section they show up, and if a dedicated section for AI misconduct exists or not. So using this, we were able to determine the rating of each university. Not only that, we then used DeepSeek to further confirm our ratings, just to make sure that we hadn't missed certain things, that maybe certain keywords were showing up in the PDF when we hadn't noticed it. And finally, after making the Excel sheet and the ratings, a third party reviewed our results to make sure that everything appeared correct and consistent.
So yeah, moving on to the results, we kind of analyzed the 2 data sets that we collected, and we carried out statistical analysis on both. To start with, we've got just a simple comparison of the 2 AIMR ranking comparisons. And as you can see, there's a definite decrease in score globally across the 2 data sets, suggesting that from 2023 to 2025, globally universities are starting to increase their sort of acknowledgement of AI in academic studies and adding that to their policies. If we move on to the next slide. So we actually compared the average AIMR scores across the 2023 and 2025 data sets. And as you can see, globally, there's been a large decrease from 2023 to 2025. We had an average of 2.82, give or take, in 2023, and that average has gone down to about 1.3. We did find, comparing top 25 to bottom 25 universities, that in 2025, the top 5 or the top 25 universities did have a globally lower score than the bottom 25, suggesting that possibly they are thinking more about the scores and thinking more about their policies, which is quite interesting and could require some further investigation to see why they're looking so much more into it. If we move on to the next slide. So next, after this point, I carried out some statistical analysis on R. I used a paired t-test to compare the mean values of each data set. I obtained a t-value of 10, which, as you can see, was highly significant with a p-value of much greater than 0.01. This is showing that there is a highly statistical significant difference between the two means, suggesting a large global decrease in mean score from 2023 to 2025. We move on to the next slide. I also carried out correlation analysis on the data to see if the data is actually showing any correlation. Pearson product moment correlation coefficient of 2.096 was obtained with a p-value of just less than 0.05, again showing significant variation between the 2 years. Correlation of 0.292 was obtained, showing that there has been a decrease globally in AI MR scores from 2023 to 25. And all of this is just giving statistical confirmation of the pattern that we can see when comparing the two data sets. As you can see on the left here, I've got distribution of the ranking changes and their frequencies between the 2 years. There's a much greater decrease in -2 was the mode of the changes, showing that between the two data sets, universities tended to change by -2 the most, which is interesting in a way. And 74% of universities had a decrease in ranking from 2023 to 2025, showing that across the globe, universities are concentrating on defining their policies and making sure they address this problem. We can just move on to the last slide of the results. So we also looked at the changes in the use of these keywords that we were searching for. As you can see, there's been a huge increase in the use of the word artificial intelligence in the policies, going from 10% or 20% in the 2023 study to 86% coverage in the 2025 study. Chatbots showed a slight increase, but not all that much. And third party also showed a large increase in usage in the 2025 data analysis. And I think Ray is going to move on to the discussion of this data now.
Hi, so here are some key findings. So over the past 2 years, UK universities have significantly improved their AI policies. Like mentioned before in the results, the top universities are actually leading the way, showing a much stronger policy framework. And another major shift is that inclusion of the AI in universities' official policies. But we still can see that chatbot mentioned are still low. It's only increased slightly to 18%. So what does this mean? Universities are now better recognize AI-related risks, but chatbot policies are actually still lacking. So higher ranked universities have been quicker to adapt. This shows the difference in how different institutions respond to the AI challenges. Next slide, please. Challenges and improvements. Despite these improvements, there are still challenges remain. So one key issue is that how are these policies are actually being applied. Many universities define AI misconduct differently. So this will lead to actually inconsistencies. And another big challenge is that AI actually evolves much faster than the policy. By the time universities update their guidelines, new AI tools have already emerged. This is why universities need maybe a more flexible policies that can adapt over the time. And finally, like I mentioned before, chatbot and generative AI misuse is still not fully addressed. Even though chatbot misuse is a type of AI misuse, most universities do not clearly separate it in their policies. Instead, many of them actually just group it under the third-party service, which is just too general. Next slide, please. And the limitation of the study method, like any research, our study actually has its limitations. So we relied on public available policy documents. However, this don't always reflect what actually happens in the practice. Some universities may have internal guidelines or informal ways of enforcing rules that we couldn't assess. And secondly, AI policies are changing rapidly. Some universities may have updated their policy after we collected data, meaning our results might not capture the very latest changes. And finally, we actually only analyze 50 universities, but this may not fully represent all the institutions in the UK. We also didn't compare AI policies across different academic disciplines. Some fields may regulate AI more strictly than others, and there are areas of the future research should explore. Next slide, please. And final takeaways. So what we can learn from this? Universities have made major improvements in defining AI-related misconduct. More policies now mention AI, 86% in 2025 compared to just 20% in 2023. The AIMR score also shows a significant improvement, but there's still works to do. Moving forward, universities should provide AI-specific training for students and staff to clarify ethical use. Research should also expand beyond just 50 universities to get a more complete picture. We also recommend real-time policy monitoring to keep up with the AI advancements. Chatbot specific misconduct needs more clear guidelines, and there should be standard AI integrity policies across the institutions. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We'll get a virtual round of applause, but it won't just be me clapping. I'm sure other people are clapping in the background just without microphones on. It's always tough to go first. I think it's very positive that many more universities are considering the use of GenAI now than they used to be. We've got a few hands clapping in the chat as well. So thanks everyone for that. Just one minor comment. When you kept saying bottom 25 universities, are probably not the bottom 25 universities, the bottom of the top 50 universities, but it is interesting though that the numbers were slightly different between those two groups. So we have a question, got a couple of questions are slightly wrapped together in the chat. We'll start with one from Sandy there. Did you find anything good on the ethical use of AI? Or as Mary has also asked something very similar about positive terms related to academic integrity, as opposed to the very sometimes negative viewpoint that we see surrounding academic misconduct.
Yeah, I can speak on this if that's okay. I think most AI policy documents that we encountered, what they did was they sort of then linked to their AI like their AI most universities also had like a platform for you to learn more about Gen AI and how to use it ethically and responsibly. So I think most of the AI policy documents themselves talked about misconduct and the actual ways in which plagiarism and stuff would be checked, but they also linked on how to find guidance for using Gen AI responsibly as well. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I mean, I have a question as well in terms use the AI misconduct readiness scale, which came through in a previous study in 2023 there. And now everything is very much at the top end of that scale. Is that scale still right, or should that scale be changed? How useful did you find it?
Yeah, so I think I agree with that because obviously the study was designed in 2023 to assess readiness essentially for AI related misconduct. And now most basically nearly all universities have some sort of AI policy surrounding misconduct. But it's obviously, as Ray mentioned, how are they being enforced? Like, is AI just still being put under the category of third-party services, or is it being taken Like, do universities recognize just how powerful AI could be used? So yeah, so maybe a newer rating system could be used not on the preparedness or readiness of UK universities, but on the actual enforcement or the effectiveness of the AI policies and how it's affecting how students are using GenAI.
Okay. Thanks for that. By the way, people feel absolutely free to ask things. One thing you mentioned though, right, was you use DeepSeek to help with the research. So I'm quite interested in how you did that. I mean, I have tried DeepSeek, but not in a research capacity. So what did you do using DeepSeek and how useful was that?
I can take this one. So basically what we did is we usually had downloaded the PDFs or had copy pasted the web pages of each university. Prior to this, we had basically explained the AI AMR rating so that it had a bit of an idea on what to look for. We gave it keywords to search for. And then using those keywords and then explaining how they were being used, like what sentences were they used, because if they mention AI but then don't mention offenses or mention its misuse, then obviously the term AI is not very important in that policy. So we asked a lot of questions and then we asked what rating, based on all of these information that we've given it, what rating it would give it with the explanation on the side, which usually was pretty much aligned with what we had already put. And because it was quite quick to just put a PDF and then have a quick table on the side and then compare it to ours, it was a very easy and quick tool to use.
Okay, and what did you do if the ratings differed, if your rating and DeepSeek's rating weren't the same?
That wasn't usually, well, on my part personally, that wasn't usually because it wasn't very hard to miss the fact that these universities were very well prepared now for AI misuse and to see it as an offense. So in my case personally, there were no differences.
I think also because the rating, there's only like 4 categories, it very usually the policy sits very obviously in one compared to the other. Whereas if there was like a 20 rating, then it might get it wrong.
All right. And was there anything in the data and the results that surprised you and wasn't what you expected to see?
I think that when we looked at the policies, as it was mentioned before, what we realized is a lot of the policies had a website linked to it to further inquire about AI. There were a lot of frequently asked questions about AI, but there was also a how to use it ethically. I think something that I was quite surprised about as well going through these is the amount of examples that were given. There were a lot of examples on how AI could be used well and as a tool and ethically, and then also how it could be used in the context of misconduct, which I think is extremely helpful because AI is such a broad tool that sometimes it's very hard to draw that line between ethical and non-ethical. So I think that that was also something that I was not expecting.
Yeah, yes, I think that is probably true for everybody here would agree. It is so tricky to know when is this acceptable, when is this not acceptable, particularly when we all work across the different universities, different subject areas, as well for that there. And we've got one more question in the chat. You raised a useful point about the lack of mention of chatbots. Do you think institutions should advise on this?
Yeah, that's quite a tough one. Does anyone in the group have any? So I think maybe. So I haven't prepared an answer for this one, but maybe it's because they want to keep the policy broad on AI, and I guess chatbots kind of come in. Well, I mean, there are other chatbots, but most chatbots are AI, so it comes under that. But I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on why policies actually didn't include much mention of chatbots.
I think usually they mention Chat GPT or they'll usually go more into detail on specifically what kind of AI is most commonly used and what they consider as misconduct usually. So I think that I do think that it's probably important to get as specific as you possibly can. So that should obviously be something that could be developed. But I think that amongst students, the most common AI that is used would be ChatGPT or DeepSeek or these more specific bigger companies. And so I don't think it's harmful to not necessarily develop this aspect, but to have developed more and focused more on the explanation of what AI is, how it's used, and so forth.
All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for kicking things off. Really interesting presentation, as people have mentioned in the chat there. And we will now move over to our next group. So our next group want to just put their cameras on so we can see you. And there we go. Hey, everyone. Hi, Livy. Hi, Gabriel. Hi, Tibisha. And hi, Harry, who is briefly vertical, but is now the right way up. So there we go. So I'll let whoever would like, I'll hide myself away again, and whoever would like to share their screen, and we're going to hear a bit about GenAI detection. So over to the four of you.
Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah, that's brilliant. So away you go.
Good afternoon. Today our presentation will be about how well LLMs can detect text written by themselves or GenAI tools. AI has revolutionized content creation. From crafting essays and articles to generating creative writing, AI tools such as ChatGPT have increased convenience for users. This surge in AI-generated content is often referred to as the AI content boom, marking a shift in how information is produced and shared. Students now have access to tools that can draft essays with minimal effort. Media outlets are experimenting with AI to generate news summaries, financial reports, and product descriptions. AI tools are now also widely used for social media campaigns and email marketing. While this boom presents exciting opportunities, it also raises significant concerns, particularly in academia and journalism, where authenticity and originality are paramount. As the use of AI tools becomes more widespread, the ability to reliably distinguish between human-written and AI-generated content has become a challenge. This has given rise to the development of AI detection tools, which are software designed to identify patterns, language features, and markers that suggest content has been generated by AI models. However, these tools are far from perfect, prompting important questions about their accuracy and reliability. AI detection is important for several key reasons. Academic integrity, with AI now capable of producing detailed essays, scientific papers, and exam responses, institutions face a significant threat to fairness and originality. As AI content creation expands, there's also an increasing risk of plagiarism and copyright infringement. And AI tools can generate false narratives or fabricate convincing yet inaccurate content. AI model accountability. As AI systems improve, they may be used to manipulate public opinion or influence markets. And detection mechanisms are key to mitigating these risks. Our research addresses a crucial question: how well can AI detection tools identify text generated by language models such as ChatGPT? This investigation is important as AI writing tools improve, producing content that closely mimics natural human language. Our study not only examines the accuracy of these detection tools, but also explores their limitations and practical applications. Our presentation is divided into several key sections. The How AI Detection Works section will break down the core methods used by AI detectors. For accuracy and limitations, we will examine the success rates of various detection tools and analyze their vulnerabilities. For ethical and practical implications, we will address the ethical concerns surrounding AI detection, and this section will highlight potential biases and the risks of unfair penalties. Additionally, we will outline potential advancements in detection technology, including enhanced algorithms, broader data sets, and improved adaptability to evolving AI models. By examining strengths and weaknesses of existing tools, our research aims to contribute to this ongoing conversation, ensuring that AI's role in content creation remains transparent and accountable.
So how AI detection works, you've got the definition. Sorry, I'm going to have to say next slide, but when I need it to be done. So next slide. The definition of AI detection is that we're trying to figure out if a LLM can detect if it has been written by an LLM or by a human. And the core idea of how we're going to do this is how this is done is that AI-generated text follows patterns, statistical patterns like markers. It relies quite a lot on human error. So there's an element to it to which the more time a person spends on their piece, the harder it is for it to be distinguished between AI and human. So next slide. There are several methods. There are two main kind of ideas of how AI detection works, which is perplexity and burstiness. Perplexity is simply how likely a large language model is to predict the next word in a sentence. Because put simply, how AI detection how AI works is it is creating. You give it a prompt and it is predicting the output. It's ending your prompt, and that end is pre-written in the sense of an answer. So if a large language model can is likely to predict the next word in a sentence, it is more likely to be written by an LLM. This obviously has its own problems, which will be discussed further on in the presentation, because humans can write in more structured sentences in different styles. And burstiness is the variability in the text, where if there's a structure and a pattern which formulates, this is thought to be a depiction of AI, whilst humans are more sporadic and there's less kind of continuity in the text. Again, later in the presentation, we'll look into why this does and doesn't work, or mainly doesn't. Next slide. So these are the kind of three main kind of areas where AI detection tries to cover, which is the consistency, structure, and vocabulary usage. AI models seem to be more systematic, consistent in their writing, whilst human doesn't. Again, relying quite heavily on human error in order to detect the difference between the two. Sentence structure, this is kind of the same, whilst well, it is a bit different. So AI uses human error. AI is trying to look. AI is going to have perfect spelling and perfect sentences, whilst humans are going to have error. Again, different scenarios relate to different things. And then vocabulary usage. They expect when AI detection in this form of AI detection, you're looking for. If you're writing something like a personal statement, it's going to be a lot. You're going to use a lot more useful terms, whilst or more kind of upper vocabulary, whilst humans tend to not do that typically. So it's assumed to be AI. And then the final slide is that it doesn't always work. So next stage. Sorry, the methods don't always work, and that will be explained in the coming slides. Thank you.
Hello, I'm going to be focusing on one of the most critical issues with AI detection,
which is the accuracy and the limitations. If AI detection tools can't consistently tell the difference between human and AI generated text, then how much can we really trust them? So if we start with some numbers, research by Van Ogen in 2023 showed that AI detection tools were only accurate 27.9% of the time. So if a tool designed to detect AI generated content is wrong nearly 3/4 of the time, how reliable is it really? A study by Krishna et al. In 2023 showed that simply paraphrasing AI-generated text significantly reduced detection accuracy across multiple tools. In other words, even minimal human input is enough to fool these systems. This raises this big concern. If AI detection tools are this unreliable, should we really be using them to make high-stakes decisions, like accusing someone of plagiarism or academic misconduct? This question becomes even more concerning when you consider how these tools fail in two key ways: false positives and false negatives. So false positives is where human written content is mistakenly flagged as AI generated. This can happen where simple structured writing often resembles an AI output, especially when the author uses clear language and consistent grammar, and the consequence is unfair academic penalties and a loss of trust in the system. For example, if a student writes a carefully crafted essay only to be accused of AI detection because their writing was too consistent, it's unfair and it undermines the student's confidence and credibility. On the other hand, we can look at false negatives where AI-generated content sometimes slips through detection unnoticed. Newer models like GPT-4 are getting better at mimic human tone and style with simple prompts. If this AI-generated text is paraphrased or edited slightly, it becomes even harder to catch, like mentioned in previous studies. This means that students or professionals could get away easily with submitting AI-generated content as their own, whilst genuine work gets falsely flagged. This creates a double standard, which is unfair as students then face unfair consequences. The problem isn't just technical, it's ethical too. And it leads us to the next big issue. Should we even trust AI detection tools to make these kind of decisions in the first place? So the ethical and practical limitations are AI detectors tend to have built-in biases. Non-native English speakers and people with formal or structured writing styles are more likely to get flagged as AI. There's reliability issues. No AI detector is 100% accurate. If students are penalized based on flawed technology, institutions risk undermining their own credibility. The ethical debate: should we rely on imperfect AI tools to accuse students or professionals of misconduct? If these detection tools are this inconsistent, should they carry so much weight in academic or professional settings? We see this in the next section with Gabriel, where we conducted our own research project to see how these results were inconsistent with different detection models. This is where the next part of the discussion comes in. How can we fix these issues? One possible solution is the hybrid approach, combining AI detection with human misjudgment. That way, AI tools can assist rather than replace decision making. Thank you.
Indeed, Evie is right. As a middle ground, we are advocating for hybrid methods where AI informs an educator, but it still leaves the actual decision to the educator. We will explain 2 experiments that we ran with a disclaimer that we are a limited sample size. Simply put, we must accept that detecting AI-generated text is a judgment call for the educator, and there's no foolproof method. That said, AI can reasonably be leveraged to approach AI misuse. So again, a more measured idea is to use hybrid methods. So what do we leverage? Well, AI is effective at detecting and comparing patterns, meaning it can detect traits that characterize a student's writing style. By contrast, we cannot expect an educator, or anyone else for that matter, to remember dozens to hundreds of distinct writing styles. So a method might go something like this. The students write an in-class essay on paper at the start of the year, and these essays are scanned and submitted to some GenAI to provide some defining traits of the student's writing style. These traits and the essay are stored, and the next essay is then compared to this first essay and the writing traits, and the AI points out general similarities or discrepancies. To account for gradual changes in style, this new essay then becomes the comparison standard for the third essay and is used to update the detected writing traits, and this goes on and so forth. Crucially, AI is not too assertive here. It's simply stating if the patterns do or do not hold, which the educator can then choose to follow up on. To test the performance of AI detection alone, we each answered 2 prompts, those being, please describe a topic or concept in your field of study that you are interested in, and please explain why you find it so interesting, and all's well that ends well, do you agree with the famous quote above or not? Please explain. Each prompt was about 200 words to give us the opportunity to display some of our distinctive writing traits. And there are 2 prompts to see if our writing styles are consistent within ourselves across multiple samples. So here are the results for us in terms of percentage likely to be AI generated. And then here are the results for 4 popular Gen AI models, all checked with the same 5 common AI checkers. Now, the main conclusion we can draw, at least from this one, is that AI checking alone is still quite fallible. It does seem much more prone, however, to false positives than false negatives. Other things we can observe is, well, Grammarly seem to not really be assertive one way or the other, and Quillbot and Scriber are probably the same AI, which is fair because they are run by sister companies. More interestingly, the performance was actually heavily prompt dependent, as the false positives more often occurred on the first prompt, which was intentionally more academic and about stating details and facts. The second prompt is more subjective and open to interpretation, so it had very few false positives. Furthermore, the performance could depend on stakes, formality, or knowing that there's even an audience reading what you wrote. Evie and Tavisha's false positives for the first prompt were actually probably because their responses were taken from past essays, meaning that their writing was probably more structured and logical and therefore seemed more AI generated. So we've seen what we already know. AI detection alone should not be an arbiter for anything. So let's try the new hybrid method, having GenAI, in this case ChatGPT, compare every distinct pair of our samples to see if it can just detect changes in writing style without making judgments on the text being AI generated or not. To focus on writing style, ChatGPT was asked for each analysis to avoid focusing on presence or absence of jargon, as this is very prompt dependent and not really indicative of writing style. So here are the results. Now, more often than not, ChatGPT detected our writing style across both samples, as we can see in blue. The false matches, however, in red, and some of the weaker blue matches, as we may expect, were when one or both the samples were thought to be AI generated in our previous tests. So it's clear that GenAI can clearly not tie some samples to human writing style, but for maybe more distinctive writing styles, this could be a decent monitoring method to begin with. An interesting unintended use of these results is actually AI detection might be more useful for combating contract cheating, which is when a student asks a friend or pays an individual or organization to perform some work for them. Since contract cheating services generally do not take requests for writing styles, it might be much harder for a student to commit contract cheating, especially if they have to pay someone and then heavily restructure the work they receive in the end anyway. The pros of such hybrid methods include the fact that the student is encouraged to actually participate in this and write like themselves for the first paper essay, because this method is successive comparison, so there's no point in really trying to write erratically to avoid future detection. As discussed, this method can also dissuade students from contract cheating, and of course, the student knows that this paper essay, and it should be known to them, will be used to possibly detect AI misuse. Then they could also be psychologically dissuaded from this misuse because they don't know how much information the educator may or may not have about their writing style. However, the cons are many and require good judgment to navigate. Inaccuracies can arise from simple register changes, and some assignments may have too little writing to compare with. Self-aware students could also just ask GenAI to mimic their style. For that matter, writing style could even shift due to mood, sudden evolutions or improvements in a student's writing style, and many other reasons. This might even mean that an initial paper essay is an unreliable standard that just compounds and results in unreliable comparison. This comparison is also quite pointless when examining something like group projects or code, because there's no real distinct single writing style. Finally, text that has been actually translated from another language can often appear overly formal and seem AI generated when it isn't. So to conclude, AI detection is, as always, multifaceted and not at all straightforward when it comes to fairly raising concerns. But AI is always evolving, and it is worth seeing the direction that AI detection is heading towards in the future.
Good afternoon. So according to Gamber's part, we found that there's still some limitation about how to use AI tools to detect the text generated by themselves or human. So I want to talk about the future of AI detection, specifically focus on how AI can detect the text that generated by themselves. So this is a complex and meta issue, but it's crucial as we navigate the evolving landscape of artificial intelligence. So now let's talk about how the AI detection can evolve. There are several key areas. First, enhancing dataset diversity. So AI models are trained on vast datasets, and the diversity of these datasets significantly impacts the quality of AI-generated text. To detect this AI-generated text, we can create a number of datasets and ensure they're representative of diverse perspective. Secondly, understanding the feature that make text AI generated is crucial. By perspective, by analyzing linguistic patterns, word frequencies, and the sentence structure, we can identify signatures unique to AI-generated content, making detection more accurate. The third, machine learning models can be trained to classify text as either human-written or AI-generated. However, this is a cat and mouse game. As AI evolves to generate text, then it's harder to detect, requiring detection method to continuously improve. Last but not the least, it's important to recognize the limits of AI detection. Achieving 100% accuracy is unlikely, and there will always be some uncertainty. Ethical considerations such as privacy and freedom of expression must also be taken into account. Besides, AI detection also needs help from collaboration and policies. Firstly, combining AI efficiency with human judgment is crucial in high-stakes content verification. AI can flag potential AI-generated text, while human makes the final decision, ensuring balanced and trustworthy outcome. After that, we can establish global standards. Regulation and the standard for AI content can help identify and regulate AI-generated text. This could involve labeling or technological solution, ensure AI is developed and used responsibly worldwide. Finally, empowering individuals with critical thinking and media literacy skills is vital. By educating the public and how to identify AI-generated content, we foster a society that is discerning and less susceptible to misinformation. All in all, the future of AI detection is complex, with both benefits and challenges. As we evolve our techniques to detect AI-generated text, we must also collaborate to establish policies and educate the public. That's all for our presentation. Thank you for listening.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Yeah, very interesting once again. I mean, I did find that quite fast, which I'm sure you did as well for that. So some of the experimental results I didn't quite take in. So I may need just to look at the slides. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. We've got Robin Crockett with us, who has done a lot of work on AI detection as well, who contends that as AI text attains full human equivalence, AI detectors will become redundant. It'll be trying to detect differences that won't exist anymore, and watermarking is easily removed. I mean, do you have any thoughts about that subject?
If I may, yes, Robin, very, very good point. Watermarking also, I'm happy you brought that up, is a very interesting topic because, yes, it is a nice thought that you can somehow hide something that, indicates that something is AI generated. But all that really does is honestly create a market for other people to come out with AI models where the selling point is we don't watermark. So, yeah, it's such options are it can work temporarily, but it won't work forever. So it's true. While AI becomes more human equivalent, it's difficult to try to detect what actually distinguishes AI from humans. And this is very much an arms race where it's hard to know where we end. It could be that this becomes a moot point later on, that detecting AI with AI is useless. But we know we do have options, even if they don't necessarily require AI. For example, not that we would maybe want to resort to this, but we could always have students do all essay work, say, on campus. We could ramp this up to say, you need to use laptops that are, don't have access to GenAI engines. There are ways to escalate this, but it's true. All this generally just becomes quite restrictive and distrustful. I guess is kind of the word I want to use. Very distrustful between educators and students, and that's why it is also quite important to really just generate this report between educators and students and part of this is acknowledging that GenAI is a tool for all, and we all need to use it to help one another as best as we can. But very good question.
Yeah, thanks, Gabriel. I mean, this is quite a controversial area, as you may see in the chat. We've got Olu with us as well. Hey, Olu, good to have you here as always here, who has looked a lot more at this, I know, from the linguistical features side of things. and he says that AI detection can be done if the right linguistic features are used. But the problem is that if you say what these features are, then other people can then do the kind of interventions that have been talked about. And this is one of these continued discussions. I think probably we shouldn't get too much into that. I don't say that argument here, because that's slightly outside of what you were doing, but you've sort of jumped into quite a controversial area there. I mean, Evie, do you want to come in?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, can I add to that? I think what we wanted to focus on, that we have the idea about that AI detection can continuously evolve, and if you've got the watermarking that can be removed too easily, I think we also wanted to focus on in our slides, and that's what we tried to make clear as well, that because everything changes so often, it's quite harsh at the moment to have a certain, if your work is flagged as AI generated, it's immediately penalized, and you're kind of, you lose points on that, and that might not be the case. And it's just working out if we can find that balance, which is fair, so then we can actually imply it and it's fair to use in institutions where it has a big impact.
Yeah, thanks for that. This is again another continued discussion about should we use AI detection or not, and I suspect you all have quite different views about this. I mean, one thing I'm interested in is that you use 200-word samples of your own writing, and I appreciate why you use 200-word samples, because you're only going to write a limited amount for this. But do you think the length of your writing has any impact on the results of the study?
Yes, it's when doing this analysis, we did see many signs that actually, if anything, there was often more issues the longer the sample was, because while you might think that a longer sample gives more opportunity to show distinct features of your writing style, what often happened is GenAI would often justify similarity or dissimilarity based on a handful of examples. So the longer your sample was, the higher the likelihood was that you phrase something similarly to someone else or to GenAI. And then GenAI would fish that out and say, but look here, you're clearly AI generated, or you're clearly of the same writing style as someone else. So yes, it did matter quite a bit, but honestly, in an opposite fashion to what we likely expected.
Yeah, thanks for that. Again, a lot of discussion. You've really got an all-star audience here of academic integrity researchers joining you. So it's very pleased this has created such a lot of interest with your topic. Mary asks that your approach of testing this on your own writing was interesting. What are your feelings about the results and the implications? That's just quite general.
I think in terms of that, I think because we knew we were writing it for our research, it was also to avoid the bias of, I know 200 words to some people, if we sent it out on a survey, that might they might not have understood the severity of why we were doing what we were doing, and they might have just used ChatGPT or different AI generators to generate their response. And that's what we wanted to avoid, otherwise it'd make our responses invalid for our results at all. And it was interesting to see, because we had control of where we were getting our responses from, how me and Tavisha had it from an essay which was more structured, and then we had Gabriel and Harry doing it straight away rather than from an essay or previous writing. So it was more that we could make a more personal inference than using it in a widespread and not being able to gain how it was taken from and gained.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. And so if you were to take this study forward, or you were going to advise other people to do a similar type of study, just to see if these hold on a larger scale, would you have any recommendations for them?
It's always interesting to see. I mean, the first bit of information that I honestly learned was more so about myself. What exactly stands out about my writing style, because that's not always known to a lot of people. But it's also quite important to know that, yeah, as it stands, GenAI detection is quite flawed, and you do need to be quite careful to get useful results out of this. So it's interesting to test it out, if anything, to see where or how often it might not work, because you do have cases, yes, where students are, if I may use the term, sometimes persecuted if you only use GenAI to solely detect work and use it as the be-all, end-all judge, jury, and executioner. So that's my bit. I think it is an interesting test.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I think it's a perfect point to end on about this, and I'm sure the discussion of GenAI detection is going to go on and on for quite a while yet. I mean, there are so many commercial firms as well invested in the space. But a virtual round of applause to you all once again, and thank you for all of your efforts. Then. And at this point, we're going to hand over to our next exciting presentation. So if our next group would like to put their camera on, then we'll be able to see you. And whoever would like to kick off this presentation, or whoever is sharing their screen, please do so. So a bit hard to monitor the list of participants sometimes, but there we go. See, Rosie is with us. Hey, Rosie, hey, Kishan.
Hello.
There we go. Hey, everyone. Hi, have you got a couple more people here as well? Just we've got Jason. I think I saw Jason somewhere. There you go. There's Jason. Hey, Jason. Yeah, have we got one? The problem is how it displays on my screen. Oh, there's one, because it displays over several screens for me. You get a different view if you're at home. Boy, and there we go. Your camera is on, right? All right, so I'll hand this over to you. I think you're going to look at some search engine analytical data and see what you found about academic integrity AI and related areas. So I will hand the floor over to you. So go ahead. And Rosie, you're sort of stuck in a loading mode. Ah, there we go. Right.
Hello, sorry, I just struggled to unmute a little. Hello, so yeah, we're looking at search engine analytics data and how that can be used or misused by students. Yeah.
So first of all, what is search engine analytics data? It can also be called as the transaction log of search engine, which is an electronic record of interactions that have occurred during a search episode between a web search engine and users searching for information on the web search engine. So in general, it's the information about how users interact with the search engine. And here are some examples. First, the analytics data is about what are people searching for, like giving some keywords that people concerns and searching for. And the next one is how do people interact with the search engine result page? Like when I search for search engine analytics data, the result page is shown and it says there are 9.5 million results. So if I want to see some specific content in the website, I need to interact with the result page. So if anybody wants to know what did I see in the search engine, they need to know how I interact with this page. And next is how do people find a specific website? Like the website can be shown in result page by different ways, like when I search, by searching for different keywords and using different kind of browsers. So the website can be shown in when people do use other ways. So it's also important to know how people find the website. And another thing is what is the trend of all these things, like all the behaviors of searchers can change in time. So knowing the trend can help them do some preparation, and it's also very important. And now we may focus on the general use of the search analytics data. So in general, it is used for the search engine optimization which helps the web owners to improve their website and let more people can find their website and see them. Like they may find what keywords is more popular. It's easy to find that a website full of suitable and correct keyword is more popular than what a website without any this kind of keywords. And meanwhile, for a website, they may also want to focus on the trend as I said, they need to do some preparation for the future change. And if they want to see whether their strategy work, they also need to keep tracking on the search engine analytics data so that they can see whether they're doing something right or they're doing something wrong. What they have done, whether they have done is useful. And another thing is the search engine marketing. Like when people find the position in the result page is more attractive, they may pay for the advertisement for it, and this can help them do better decision in these kind of advertising. And there are also other use for the search engine analytics data, like this will show what do people most concerned on. Like, so the government or like those technological companies, they can prioritize the most important issue rather than spending most of time in areas that nobody really concerns. So that's all. And what is
think we've lost the
Okay,
audio.
Hey, is everything
sorry.
okay?
Yes. May I control the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, it took a while to come through. There you go.
Okay. Now, sorry. Back to the last page.
Okay.
Yes, that's fine. Besides that, during the research, we also noticed that the functions of AI is also similar to that of search engines. One can also find useful resources on GPT, DeepSeek, etc. Thus, some of you may ask, can we use AI itself instead of searching engine to conduct the research about the student misuse of AI? And why do students start to use AI instead of searching engines for cheating? This is an interesting comparison. Let's look into it. To begin with, it can be seen that generative AI has some obvious advantages compared to traditional searching engines. To be specific, it responds faster and it usually provides more accurate answers. For example, AI has excellent performance in computer science. When someone turns to AI for help, he no longer needs to read those long and complicated texts and documents on the internet. The AI can also raise very appropriate examples and efficiently point out all the errors at once in the code. This is what search engines are hardly able to do. However, this does not mean that the generative AI can completely outperform the search engines. The AI themselves also have certain limitations. For example, as in my research, the answer from AI is generated from three sources: the general knowledge, the recent information that the user provided, and the long-term memory preserved from the conversations. The latter two sources are indeed provided by the users themselves instead of the AI, so the only academic useful source is the general knowledge. However, this does not upgrade regularly, which means that AI may provide outdated or incorrect answers. In comparison, searching engines are usually able to provide latest information. Moreover, in most cases, AI does not have the right to refuse answering the questions from users. The problem is when users ask information that the AI is not quite sure about, the AI may simply generate fictional things or provide fabricated information. This may be lethal in the academic area. To make things worse, when AI receives questions that require complicated reasoning, for example, a difficult math problem, it will hardly be able to provide the correct answer. Different AIs like GPT or DeepSeek or something else may provide different answers for the same question. Furthermore, more differences exist between searching engines and generative AIs, which can neither be counted as advantages nor as limitations. The generative AI encourages users to perform more interactive behaviors, as it also allows users to customize the expected responses. Users can also ask for suggestions from AI. In comparison, the searching engines can provide more raw materials from different perspectives, with probably more details. This requires more effort for users to work with, but it will also offer more comprehensive material, hence it may be more helpful for our research. Considering things discussed above, I may here close my argument. The generative AI does have certain advantages over searching engines, and this has made more students switch to AI for academic misbehavior. But it is still better for us to use searching engines to conduct this research. Moreover, the certain characteristics of AI leave some sort of traces for us to stick to, and may indeed act as some clue for us. Thus, we can now use the searching engines as tools to find out more results.
Okay, so when conducting our own research on how search engine analytics can be helpful, it was important to look at the most widely used tools for search engine analytics, and we found that these were Google Trends, SERRanking, Ahrefs, SEMrush, and Keyword Everywhere, as you can see on the screen. For the research that we were conducting, we chose to use Google Trends simply because it was the most straightforward to use within our time frame. Additionally, due to the fact most tools for collecting search engine data offer commercial purposes and professionals, there is a bit of a paywall for the rest of them, which limits our access, which Google Trends didn't really pose as a problem. However, using Google Trends does pose us with some limitations. As stated previously, this only allows us to use the data from Google as a search engine. This means we're not taking into account the discrepancies between different users on different search engines, such as Bing, Yahoo, Baidu, Yandex, and Ecosia, and the nuance that might add to our research. Additionally, Google Trends only provides us with relative search interest, not the absolute volume of searches. This makes it hard to compare our data if we did gain access to the other tools that are available. Google Trends also will not show data that has very low volumes of searches, meaning that on the graphs to follow, it represents a 0, which obviously is much less specific, but it does allow the data to be presented a bit more clearly. And as we mentioned earlier, search engine analytics can allow you to see how you interact with pages and where you click and where it takes you, which Google Trends doesn't grant us access to, sorry. So to begin our research, we did a sample survey of some Imperial students in years 2 to 3, and we found out what they most use AI for in relation to their university studies. The findings showed the highest use for essays, coding, general tutoring and planning, and for general homework. These were then used as the key searches we would track using the search engine analytics tool, Google Trends, to provide our data. Due to the this survey was undertaken using convenience sampling, there are obviously some limitations. Imperial students are not reflective of this general student population, and uni students are not interchangeable with secondary school students. Particularly, Imperial students also are mainly limited to STEM subjects, which would affect the type of work we're wanting to undertake using AI. This, for example, could increase the work doing for coding and might decrease it for essays. Additionally, it is important when looking at the data we received to analyze it in the wider context. Because of this, on the graphs in the next few slides, I will highlight key release dates of GPT and the general state school term dates in the UK. So this first graph is showing all the data relative to each other. And this next graph is showing the data as raw data and objectively. As you can see in the grey tinted areas, which represent the summer, Easter and Christmas holidays, the searches of AI peak during the academic term times and trough during the holidays for students. We've taken this as a way of quantifying what searches have been made by students. The first yellow pillar you can see represents the GPT release date on the 30th of November 2022. This shows an obvious spike in AI search activity. The decrease in search activity follows this initial interest and/or novelty, but also correlates with the school Christmas holidays. The second yellow pillar is representing the GPT-4 update release on the 14th of March 2024, and also shows a spike of interest. The release of DeepSeek is shown by the third yellow pillar in January 2025, and this overlaps with the return from school holidays, and it's hard to see whether this spike is due to that keeps happening each time, or the release of DeepSeek.
So what does this data mean? Well, overall, we can see the data trends upwards, which shows an increasing affinity for AI over the last 3 years, such as including the term AI homework in particular are rising at the highest rate, with a particularly large increase in late 2024. Homework is a term commonly used in schools as opposed to universities, which could imply that AI is becoming more popular among younger students. AI essay, however, is an outlier and has steadily decreased in popularity since 2023, which could indicate the successful implementation of AI detection technology, or perhaps just a fear of said technology. AI code and AI essay have more searches in general compared to AI tutor and AI homework, which often have negligible search numbers. This is likely due to those terms being less related to education and more useful outside of academia. AI code in particular has the most searches and decreases less during holidays, especially in summer 2023. This is because coding is both less common within education and more common outside of it. Additionally, as code is a word related to AI in general, the term AI code would also be used for finding information about AI rather than attempting to use it. Interestingly, AI essay briefly overtakes the more popular term AI code in the first half of 2023, soon after the release of OpenAI's ChatGPT and their improved model GPT-4. This could be due to the marketing of AI chatbots, such as ChatGPT, as masters of the English language rather than programming language, which appeals to a larger audience. But how can we be sure? I went too far, sorry. The use of these terms in a search doesn't necessarily imply the use of AI. Searching doesn't mean using any of the results, and as we mentioned earlier, Google Trends doesn't show this data. The data also includes searches that might imply the opposite of the use of AI, such as what are the consequences for using an AI tutor, or how to avoid sounding like an AI essay. And again, searches for AI code would include searches for AI source code or tutorials for coding AI. Secondly, it's possible to use AI without including these terms in the search. As Jason was talking about, plenty of students are going straight to AI rather than using search engines. Google automatically puts an AI overview at the top of most searches as well, which means you don't need to search the word AI to get an AI result. And our research didn't include searches including specific AIs, such as ChatGPT or DeepSeek. This data is not restricted to students. Google Trends shows every search, regardless of who searches it. This limitation proved particularly challenging as finding student-only data would be extremely difficult and would need to be handled delicately in order to comply with ethics standards. As a result, we deem this unrealistic for our research. And can we even infer about misuse? Even if we assume every search is by a student and leads to the use of AI, there's no information about how the AI is used. How do we even define misuse? Definitions range from directly copying and pasting AI responses to any use of AI at all. And that's only for assessments and graded work. Most people agree there's nothing wrong with students using AI for revision or for practice. An AI written essay could be referred to as a model answer or plagiarized and claimed to be original. Both of these uses would be included in this data. So in conclusion, there are obvious spikes in education-related search terms that include AI during term time, which implies that lots of students are attempting to use AI. Given the specific dates and holidays during which these searches go down and the increasing number of searches for the term AI homework, we can conclude that school students make up a significant number of these students. The standout and steady decline in the use of the term AI essay suggests that faith in AI essay writing is decreasing. But unfortunately, search engine analytics are unlikely to be able to show evidence of AI misuse by students, as the data is not specific to students and cannot show how the AI is used. School or university network specific data alongside data about how students actually use AI may be able to provide a clearer picture in this regard. The best we can say is that the misuse of AI is increasing, but that is only because the overall use of AI is increasing. We could reasonably suggest that the term AI homework is the most likely to lead to misuse, as it's directly related to graded work, which would imply that AI misuse is increasing more among younger students. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. I think I would probably comment the same as the previous group, that perhaps it would have been useful to spend a little bit more time on the data as opposed to the background, because that really is the focus of everything you've done. But you had some really interesting graphs in there. As always, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put those into the chat. Were there any other studies about using search engine analytics that already existed in terms of academic integrity and AI there? Did you find anything when you were deciding how to approach this?
In my initial research, I did have a look, but as I briefly mentioned, I found a lot of the tools they were using were a little bit paywally to me. So I did, yeah, there were some really good ones that I saw that were really interesting, but as far as primary research went, I couldn't access a lot of the stuff I wanted to. But yeah, it was interesting that yeah, a lot of people, when especially looking at the tutoring sort of side of things, people looking for like AI tutors, like how people would interact and the things they click on, that seemed to be a big one on the more personal side of things, which is interesting because I think it's a bit controversial to replace real tutors with an AI tutor. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I know the financial side of things is always a problem with conducting research. Very hard to get around that one, but Google Trends is a very useful term for the for these. I mean, you had a section in the presentation which was talking about how GenAI is replacing search engines there. How did that feed into the research study? Because it's a little bit disconnected. But I mean, have you got any data, for instance, by using GenAI systems to compare with, or did you find anything that would match up with the rest of the study there?
In fact, I conducted research to obtain credit for our entire research. I just want to show that the use of certain engine to conduct this research is very useful and should be able to generate some, valuable results. That is the goal of my part.
All right. Well, thanks, Jason. And I mean, one bit there was, I mean, the interesting bit to me was about your results to do with AI tutor and the search term there. And that had stayed fairly flat, if I remember, on the graph, but the specific searches for essays, code, homework, and areas like that had, well, I mean, essay maybe not, but the others had generally increased there. I mean, do you think many people use AI as a, yeah, thanks for bringing the graph back up. Do you think many people use AI as a tutor?
I think lots of people are hopeful that they can, but not necessarily having much joy with it is kind of what I find, like similar to the essay thing, how it's kind of declined over time. The faith in the fact that it will work might have more decreased, if that
Okay.
kind of
And
makes sense.
yeah, so you froze slightly in the middle there.
Sorry.
So it's probably your connection. That's always a challenge for these things. And I know these numbers are these aren't search numbers, these are relative values, which complicates reading these a bit because it looks like there were no searches for AI tutor, but that isn't quite what that means, is it? When we come to say the area of March 2025. Yeah, all right. And and you said you use a bit of convenient sampling to come up with these 4 terms. If you wanted to expand on this study to get maybe a more complete set of terms, then how would you go about it?
I think considering the fact we sampled Imperial students kind of just who were around, I personally would like to increase it from not just our uni, so a few more unis, and also include all types of students. Like I mentioned, secondary school students aren't interchangeable with us in the slightest. They use it for different things and kind of see what they're saying. So that would be something I would have liked to have done.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's be a useful thing to do. And I know a bit you talked about towards the end was you can't differentiate whether these results are searches from students. Also, presumably you can't differentiate what country they're coming from, which when I've done studies like this, it's always a bit of a challenge because if say they were from the southern hemisphere, then their holiday dates will be different because they often work in a different cycle for that. Can you think of any ways that you could use this same technique but focus more in on students?
Yeah, so firstly, this data is UK specific, at least according to Google. But yeah, I think if you have access to school networks, to university networks, you can look at the data on those networks specifically, and you know that most of the traffic on those networks would be by students. Obviously, staff would be included as well. But yeah, that data is not public and not easy to get.
Yeah, thanks. I've stopped you sharing so we can just see you while we finish off a bit more. I hadn't picked up, incidentally, this was UK only data. I'm sure you said that, but I must have just missed that because that does change the interpretation a bit of all of this. But I mean, it probably makes it more useful to us as a mainly UK audience here. I don't know where all our audience are watching from there as well for that. All right, I think that's a perfect time. So we will close off there. So thank you, everyone, once again. It definitely shows the value of these results, of these kind of techniques, and looking at search engine data. Yeah, perhaps an underused area in academic integrity research as well. So at this point, we will hand over to our next group. So you'd like to bring yourselves to the forefront. There we go. Which you just need to put camera on, and then we will see you. Hopefully we have everybody here from our next group, the looking at legislation and policy to do a contract cheating. So this, I mean, if people are joined at the last minute, then I know a few people had classes and things that clashed despite the best efforts for that. So who do we have? Do we have so Newton, Pavanjot, Pengran, Sephora, Zin. I see some of you here, so if you turn your camera on, we'll be able to see you. And if we're waiting for anyone in your group, then let me know. We can give them a minute to join. Hey, Pavanjot.
Yeah, I'm not sure if everyone's here right now. I think that's kind of the issue.
Yeah, well, I can see Pengran in there. There we go. I know we had one. He's in again. I know one slight complication that we have some people who are out on their some people on medicine who are out on their placement, and they were joining at the end of their at their shift. So I know that takes a minute to connect, which has slightly affected our timing. So can we? But otherwise, I'll just double check my emails that nobody has urgently tried to contact me to say they can't get in the room or anything like that. I don't think so. So what I suggest is that we do have to largely stick to time. So if we make a start with those who are here, and then the others, when they join, can contribute. Yeah, I see. Oh, here, Penguin, I see his here, I think. So that's good. So Penguin, if you put your camera on, we'll be able to see you.
Yeah.
There we go. Hey there.
Hello. Sorry if it's a bit blurry.
That's okay. We don't mind the blurriness. We can cope with that. Right. There we go. Oh, that's so I take it one of the people here, you're not the only one of you is Pengram, so by elimination, there can't be two of you, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think that's Newton, right?
That's Newton, yes, who's joined with a different link rather than that link. Okay, Newton. So I think we'll have to make a start with the four of you and then just see what happens with oh no, Tavisha is here. There we go. So we've been saying where sorry, not Tavisha, no, ignore that completely because I've got too many names in front of me. Sephora, who we need, right? Anyway, we'll need to make a start with the four of you because we're getting some time. We've got lots of people here watching as well. So if you go ahead and if somebody would share their screen, please. Has somebody got the slides that they can share?
I'll share the slides then.
Yeah, if you would, please, because we do need to continue on. And we're all very keen as well to hear what you've done. Right, there we go. We've got your slide deck. So just put it into full screen mode and I will turn off my camera and audio so we can just listen to you. Right.
Okay, so Xingcheng, I think several says that it like it says you may start the introduction when if she is late, right?
Okay. Hi everyone, and welcome to our presentation. Are laws and policy doing enough to detect contract cheating in UK? And what more can be done to prevent this breach of academic integrity? So before we get started, just a brief introduction. So just to clarify, contract cheating involves passing off someone else's work as your own in exchange for cash. In this presentation, we are going to cover why contract cheating happens, what is being done to stop it, and what more can be done to and how much support would this preventive measure have from people? So why does contract cheating occur in the first place? To be honest, college can be overwhelming. Students often feel immense pressure between maintaining high grades, managing multiple deadlines, and sometimes juggling part-time job. In some cases, this pressure may lead to them to take shortcut, one of which is contract cheating. So we specifically down to choose to interview some college students by focusing on their experiments in order to understand their motivation behind contract cheating. So then this can be provide insight that help institutions address this issue more effectively. And the first is the academic pressure and performance anxiety. Many students feel they must maintain a high GPA for a prestigious internship, scholarship, or applying a PhD program, since the competition is usually fierce, and sometimes they often feel if a single bad grade may ruin their future. And for example, one student we interviewed was applying to a top-tier PhD program. He excelled in most courses, but one courses were quite challenging. So instead of risking a lower grade, he sometimes may have the thought of using a contract cheating service to help him to maintain a perfect GPA. And the next is about the time management strategy. And also, college is hectic. Students have to balance their coursework, extracurricular, part-time job, and also their social lives. Sometimes deadline piles up, and when students are running out of time, contract cheating feels like a quick fix to it. Just like in the interview some students talk about, they usually have multiple assignments due in the same week, so they feel completely overwhelmed. Under that pressure, the idea of hiring an online writer to help them to complete the coursework often come across in their mind, since they simply couldn't finish on time while also maintaining high quality. The last one is the accessibility of contract cheating. So cheating has never been easier. A simple Google search or social media can lead students to website offering custom essay, for just a small fee. Many students don't even treat this as cheating. They think of it just as an academic help. For instance, one student talked in the interview that he found that there are some websites on the social media promising plagiarism-free essay, and the process was so easy that students often convinced themselves it wasn't a big deal. This shows how the internet is making contract cheating more tempting and normalized. While our research provides valuable insight, it still has some limitation. Since we only interview college students, our findings don't include perspective of other organizations like high school students or even the business of contract cheating service. So in the future, we can build on this by including a wider range of perspectives. We have discussed the basis of contract cheating, so next we will move on to what prevention is already in place to detect contract cheating.
Yep, and that's my section. So here we'll explore global responses to contract cheating and examine the legal.
Newton, hold
Yes.
on a second. I think I might need to like note inform me when you want to change the slide because yeah.
Oh yes, of course.
Right.
Yeah, and to examine the legal frameworks in the UK, New Zealand, and Australia. Next slide. So in the UK, the Skills and Post-16 Education Act in 2022 criminalised essay mills in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, with fines and regulatory actions by the Office for Students. And then, however, for Scotland, there are, however, no specific laws to ban contract cheating services yet, but the universities have their own ways of handling these academic misconduct. Next slide. And so Australia, it's a bit tougher there. They probably have the toughest implementation of law. So under the 2020 TEQSA Act amendments, the provision and advertisement of contract cheating is a criminal offence, punishable by up to 110,000 Australian dollars in fines and 2 years imprisonment. However, no high-profile criminal cases have exist yet. So the law is only acts as like an empowerment to sort of deter these sort of contract cheating. Next, we can talk about the New Zealand, where the Education and Training Act of 2020 imposes a 10,000 fine on services providers. In all of these cases, the student often face academic penalties, but no criminal charges. And the enforcement primarily targets businesses rather than individuals. Next slide. So I'm going to talk about some of the challenges in the legal consequences. So number one, it's the enforcement difficulties. So contract cheating often involves transnational actors, like company acting from different countries in different jurisdictions. So the laws in the UK cannot always apply to these foreign-based essay mills. So, and such cross-border enforcement remains weak. Secondly, there's also the liability between students versus the provider. So, as said before, most laws only targets the service providers, but not the students. However, in some fraud cases, like fake medical certificates, students can face civil fraud charges as well. And thirdly, there are the technological evasion. So SMLs increasingly uses platforms and cryptocurrency payments, which makes it harder for the government to detect these actions. But there are some good advancements. So there are more people now advocating for stricter laws targeting contract cheating. And many of these laws are going to structure after the Australia's TEQSA Act. And there are also more global collaboration involving UNESCO and the Quality Assurance Agency, which are drafting international guidelines to harmonize anti-cheating measures, including shared blacklists of essay mills. The key takeaway from this section is that the providers face growing legal risks. However, the students generally avoid criminal charges and legal framework remains fragmented. That's it for my section.
Okay, so if we move on to the next slide. All right, so if we move on to consequences of contract cheating in UK universities, there seems to be a couple of similarities in terms of the research. So we've just put up a few examples and summarized sort of the main penalties. So on the screen, you can see extracts from official policies of the University of Leeds, Brunel, Aberdeen, UCL, and East Anglia, which reflect a couple of different points. So majority universities handle the issue internally. However, as seen in UCL's policy, some universities actually take legal action. The general consensus is that the legal fault lies with the providers of contract cheating services and that the user should only face academic consequences like expulsion or having a capped degree. So for example, even if your score is high enough, you wouldn't be able to graduate with first class honors if you have like contract cheating on your record. And yeah, as you can see, we've just sort of put the conclusions on the side there, which I'm not going to say because we've sort of mentioned them already. And if we move on to the next slide. Okay, so we've explained what measures of deterrence are already in place. However, contract cheating is still relatively common. So we're going to discuss what more can be done to prevent this from happening. And that's the next section.
Yeah, so just from looking at a quick search off of Google that, say for example, an Imperial student could do, if you go onto Google and search up in a glossary, for the Imperial glossary, it will say that Imperial defines contract cheating as including the purchase of essays from other materials and other sources. And so it's sort of in a way, it's more enticing about the purchase of essays rather so than in a world where we're looking at advancements through AI generation. So it's kind of in a way enticing sort of students into using other sort of services in a way. And from looking at the glossary, they seem to define contract cheating as a form of cheating where a student outsources their learning by submitting work to a higher education provider for assessment where they have used one or more of a range of services provided by a third party to produce that work, and such input is not permitted. So if you keep on reading through the document, it goes on to list many examples like the use of essay writing or impersonating in exams. It lists who it could be from, such as third parties, freelance sites, auction sites, lecturers, colleagues, fellow students, former students, even family or friends. However, there's no mention of the use of AI, and the definition seems to focus on the use of the person more so. Realistically, universities need to be regularly updating their definitions in order to keep ahead of the curve, as we can't necessarily predict what may be released, especially with AI, especially with advances even recently with being able to train your voice in a way that AI could possibly even give a speech for you, and it could even possibly record a video for you. So a simple edit that could be added into the definition is it could be to add provided by a third party or AI generated content to produce work that's and such input is not permitted. However, even this definition is flawed as AI will continue to blur the lines between what is actually cheating and what is actually helping in work. So, for example, one person could argue that the use of AI to come up with a range of ideas is fine, and sort of helping in a brainstorming phase of your work, and sort of, refine out the rough edges of your work. However, at the same time, it could be used to outright copy an essay, get it to generate me a 5,000 word essay on a certain topic. Uh, you know, again, like with the advancement in vocal recognition, you could even teach it to record an oral examination for you. So I suppose that argument again could be weakened by forcing every examination to be in person, and sort of having invigilation be more reinforced, etc. But at the moment, the future is looking like to be a cat and mouse game. So like an arms race with AI and AI advancing and an AI detection advancing at a similar rate, and they're just one-upping each other and sort of leading to advancements in the other fields. And detection tools will need much more help in order to stay ahead of the curve, and this could be provided by universities. However, with detection tools, as we've seen earlier, there's a lot of irregularities within them where they could be falsely accusing students of using AI. And this is quite a deterrence. And if you're falsely accusing students of using AI, this could quite negatively affect them in a way that they could be punished for no real reason at all. We mentioned the Skills and Post-16 Education Bill passed in 2022, and it sort of focused more on the provider rather than the student. This is more of a recent example, and it shows sort of there's changes that are occurring. However, you could also argue it's from 2022. Quite a lot has changed in the world of AI in 2022, with a lot of more focus on it coming from last year in 2023. And it's interesting that they mostly punish a provider rather than a student, which again, maybe there should be a great emphasis on a student using these services. I know they leave it to their university in order to focus on the punishment, however they deem fit. However, you could also see that maybe a student may feel as though, well, there's no criminal charges. I'm at the mercy of the university. Maybe I could get away with using it once for an essay, but again, it's just putting the responsibility on universities, which I guess could be seen fair. Could we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So what could the future actually hold for advances in AI? So I researched a bit about nationalization of teaching of AI. So this is sort of teaching students and lecturers the correct way of using AI. So in a way, a lot of my points here kind of match together. In a way, it's more unitive rather than getting each university to separate their curriculum. So it's either effectively ban it outright or teach it in a correct way. So this will mean educating everyone equally about the uses of AI and keeping a national and possibly even international law around the uses of AI. Recently at my medical school at Imperial, there have been talks about the use of AI within our work and how to use it correctly, and signing declarations that you've used AI to aid your work. And I think small steps like this will help build a foundation for more larger education to occur, and it just helps students to know what a definition for where the line is between what's ethical to use AI and what will be deemed as more cheating. A sort of solution you could say is to largely counter cheating in examinations is to switch to oral exams, where the student's understanding is questioned in a more dynamic situation. So they're going to be asked questions and they're going to have to answer them rather than having to use AI. However, again, you could argue maybe a student knows questions, they could come provided with AI generated answers and memorize them. But you could always increase invigilation, have randomization in exams, and I did hear earlier even there was the recommendation of having essays written all the way throughout in person or using invigilated laptops. That could be quite a key way of battling sort of the use of AI in essays. However, it may be deemed impractical. So from the paper recently released by Freeman, this quote, the main factors putting students off of using AI are being accused of cheating, which is said by 50% of respondents, and getting false results or hallucinations of 51%. This paper went on to highlight the many positives of using AI within a student's work and how beneficial it is in their work, allowing them to save time and increase the quality of work. However, again, the fear that they could be falsely accused is a hindrance. This needs to be researched further through advances in AI detection tools and through possibly educating lecturers on how to better detect AI, such as by looking for errors that AI commonly make, like looking for patterns in the language being used, or by assessing the tone of the writing to see if it's adaptable. Now, I know this ain't extremely realistic. You can't expect a lecturer to know the exact writing from each sort of student that they have. But I think the person that will know your writing best is either yourself or the person marking it. And if you've written a couple essays, a lecturer will pick up on how your sort of writing is. So a key way of sort of doing this would be sort of maybe getting a student to continuously write on their continuously write essays and sort of submit them incrementally so you can see a change in their tone. And I think a way in which this could be implemented is, again, I heard this recommended earlier, is just sort of submitting work in increments, like I've said. So just currently AI detection looks at variables such as punctuation. They could look at language that's used, structure of sentences, and sort of just try to look at the general tone of a writing, which I suppose could be taught, but it is quite hard to deem that all on a lecturer. So further, this paper from 2023 said that furthermore, the discrepancy in detecting GPT 3.5 and GPT 4 emphasizes the growing challenges in AI-generated content detection and the implication for plagiarism detection. AI is developing at a rapid rate, and even this paper from 2023 will probably have changed quite a lot, especially nowadays. And new advances need to be found in order to stay ahead of the curve. So again, I've said universities could aim to increase funding into air detections, especially when new models are releasing and older ones are getting quite left behind now. And sort of just currently, I think a lot needs to be done in order to prevent a breach of academic integrity, not by changing punishments or sort of adding more scrutiny to students, but rather by changing the definitions of academic integrity and sort of including AI a lot more within our definitions and finding a way in order to use them in a more ethical way where
Okay.
it
Pavanjo, I'm going to have to stop you because you're 5 minutes over your time for the presentation there. And I think I just saw it flash up on the screen. You had 12 more slides left. So if anybody has got 1 or 2 points just to round off the presentation, please do. But you need to stick to just 1 more minute to close off because we haven't had any questions yet.
So I'm just going to try and wrap up really quickly then. So if we just go through the last slides real quick, these are just the results of like a couple of surveys that we've researched and also that we carried out, so amongst the general public. And if Henry could just summarize the findings really quickly.
Okay, so I'll give like a general conclusions of firstly the past literature research we find. So basically the first two are focuses on the effectiveness and of the preventative methods, such as setting laws on forbidding the contract cheating, and the general conclusion is that legislation on preventing contract cheating is not being very effective in deterrent, not only because these kind of websites are like criminals in these kind of websites are struggle to produce positive results, but also because students would still purchase for this kind of services, even though they know it's illegal and aware of the legal consequences of it. And the next 3 studies are doing like asking questions on students and stuff separately to see what colleges and universities can do to reduce to improve this kind of phenomena by reducing the demands. So obviously cheatings are often not reported by teaching staff because they are rather lack of evidence to prove that, or they think the penalties are not strong enough, even though they report it. And alternatively, students are often motivated by high levels of dissatisfaction about their studying environment and perceptions of there's too many opportunities for cheating in the course, and plus there's a rise in commercialization of education, which encourage students to gain unfair advantages. So it was concluded and suggested that universities should update their policies and upgrade their detecting techniques, teaching contents, and improve studying environments, and especially should provide platforms for communications between teaching staff and students.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We will have to stop there because we are way over your time. I'm really sorry. I hate doing this, but timing is so important with these things. Even with the fact you started a couple of minutes late, you still would have only got through about half your talk there. So do leave your slides up for this, and I'll catch up with you separately about some of the details. But I mean, I think this was going to be quite interesting, but we do have to move on. But I really appreciate all your work and effort with this. So unfortunately, we don't have time to take questions for this talk. But if anybody would like to ask anything, feel free to put this in the chat, and maybe you could just type something in the text chat as it goes through. So thank you so much, everyone. And we will move over now to our penultimate talk. Unfortunately, this has soon gone so fast. So if our next group would like to bring themselves to the forefront.
Hello.
There, right. George Kyon, Shun, we've got one more. Yeah, Bill, right. So if everyone would like to share their screen, then please go ahead. I know you're looking a bit, I think, at GenAI detection, which has been a very popular topic. We had a long debate about this earlier on with lots of people, so I'm sure we'll have a bit more of a discussion on the same lines. And I will just hand this over to you and hide myself away. So thanks, everyone.
Can you see this okay?
Yeah, that all looks great.
Okay, can I start? Today I'd like to discuss how different prompting techniques in large language models can impact AI detection, especially in the context of academic integrity in exam-style assessments. A significant concern in today's educational landscape is ensuring that AI is used for learning rather than as a way to bypass independent critical thinking. Misuse of AI in this way could undermine educational process. The accuracy and relevance of AI-generated responses are heavily dependent on the prompting techniques applied. In this presentation, we will explore examples of effective prompting techniques that generate relevant and meaningful responses from generative AI. We will examine the accuracy of AI-generated answers under different prompting techniques, testing the AI with specific examples and evaluating the correctness of its responses. The insight from this research would help educational institutions, such as universities, to establish guidelines for responsible use of AI in assessments. By understanding how prompting affects AI performance, this study aims to contribute to developing frameworks that not only enhance learning, but also maintain the integrity of academic evaluations. Could you go to the next slide? Zero-shot prompting is an AI technique that enables a model to perform a task without task-specific examples or fine-tuning, relying on pre-trained knowledge. The advantage of this is its efficiency. elimination of need for task-specific training datasets, adaptivity to diverse tasks with minimal adjustments, and fast deployment. The con of this technique is hallucination, contextual limitations, and inconsistencies where slight prompting changes can lead to varying outputs. It has been applied to clinical data tasks such as summarizing unstructured dietitian notes and extracting more nutrition risk factors from nursing notes without prior labeled data. The model summarized nutritional information and identified risk factors for malnutrition directly from notes using predefined templates. This approach allowed promising results, with high accuracy in summarization of 93.25% and risk factor extraction of 95%. However, challenges of this is the model's tendency to hallucinate, making incorrect guesses about patient age or risk factors not explicitly mentioned. Few-shot prompting is an AI technique where a model is provided with a small number of examples, typically 1 to 10, within a prompt to help understand tasks. This method leverages pre-trained knowledge while giving task-specific guidance to enable the model to generate more accurate responses. The pro of this method is its efficiency, improved accuracy compared to zero-shot technique, and faster deployment compared to full fine-tuning. However, the technique struggles with highly specialized tasks and requires careful selection of examples to ensure the model's success. This technique has been used to improve English to French translation by providing language models with a few examples of word pairs before requesting a new translation. In this approach, the model is presented with a few English words or sentences along with their French translation, allowing it to infer patterns in grammar, words, and sentence structure. This enables model to generate more accurate translations for unseen text without extensive fine-tuning.
Right, so chain of thought prompting is a technique designed to enhance the problem-solving capabilities of large language models. Instead of providing direct answers as shown on the diagram, as example, for math problems like this, instead of having answers as 5 plus 6 equals 11, it provides a reasoning step that guides the LLM to provide more efficiently. And that resembles how humans approach complex problems. So this technique has been shown to significantly enhance performance in arithmetics, common sense, and symbolic reasoning tasks. For example, it can be used in various science and mathematical problems. A major advantage of this technique is its ability to improve accuracy in complex tasks, particularly in arithmetics. It also enhances interpretability as step-by-step reasoning allows users to follow and verify AI logic. And this makes it especially useful in education and scientific applications. However, the method is prone to error propagation, where if the reasoning step induces error and that results in error in final answer. So for rephrasing prompting is a technique where LLM is altering the structure of the words of the inputs to enhance the performance of the LLM. There shows the example on the right-hand side. So the LLM interprets the given text and paraphrase the words. So the major advantage of this model is it can be easier for LLMs to understand the query and hence produce more accurate and relevant responses. However, this paraphrasing can be less impactful as it's just changing the word and responses may not align with the user's original intent, and there might be deviation from original content. And next is AI detection. Various AI-generated text detection tools such as Turnitin, GPT-0, and Sapling AI has been implemented with the emergence of LLM in educational settings. These detectors analyze linguistic patterns, perplexity scores, and token probability distribution to identify AI-generated responses. In other words, detection is based on characteristics of AI answers which has perfect structures, and there have been attempts such as humanize AI to bypass detection. However, regardless of using AI or manually paraphrasing text, due to the statistical analysis of detection tools, small changes cannot avoid detection. Since prompting techniques shape the way AI generates text, they may also influence how detectable the output is. Also, using multiple techniques in different disciplines can be detected by specific aspects of detection tools.
So for the experimental setup, when we were initially coming up with the experiment, we realized that manually inputting questions into an LLM and then copy and pasting that output into an AI detector would be really time consuming, and it would also be really difficult to verify whether the answers were correct or not. So we wanted to automate the process. So you can see here the pipeline that we used for the experiment. Essentially, it starts with a data set that contains questions and their corresponding answers. Then these questions are rewritten. So for every question, it gets rewritten into 4 different prompts, each using one of the prompting techniques that we discussed earlier. These questions are then fed into ChatGPT, and then we receive the answers back, and we compare those answers against the answers in our data set to produce the accuracy. So we can see how accurate the prompting techniques are individually. And we also used the answer that we received and we put it into an AI detector. In this case, we used Sapling AI. And that gave us a probability of how likely it was that the text generated was AI generated. So for the data set, we chose to use the massive multitask language understanding data set. This was for a number of reasons. The first was that the answers are provided with the questions. So that meant that we could automate the process of determining whether an answer was correct or not. Also, the questions in the data set cover a really wide range of subjects. And we chose to include topics from computer science, history, chemistry, philosophy, and law as well, because we thought this would provide a balanced mix of scientific and humanities-based questions. Also, the questions in this data set, some of them are quite difficult for LLMs to answer. So we knew that we weren't going to get 100% accuracy, or 100% accuracy from the LLM, and that would give us better ideas of which prompting techniques worked better. So we chose ChatGPT as the model because it's the most widely used model. So we think that's most representative of what it would be used in an academic setting. And specifically, we used the 4.0 mini model because of the speed and the token cost. It's also a model that's free to use on the web browser, so it made sense to use something that people have free access to, because that would be more representative of what students are using on average. So in terms of the results, we had 4 prompts per question and 6 questions per subject and 5 subjects as well. So there's 120 data points. The AI detector was actually much more successful than we expected. The average detection score was 0.99 across all prompting techniques. So we had from these results, we have no evidence to suggest that prompting technique does affect, does have an effect on AI detection. You can even see that the error bars, or like the variation is so small that it just comes up as a line. So it really was very confident that our output was AI, regardless of what prompting technique we used. However, we did get some interesting results on the accuracy of prompt techniques versus the subjects they were used for. So, for example, you can see that zero shot was the most effective. Sorry, not zero shot. Rephrasing was the most effective for chemistry, and the LLM really did struggle with answering those chemistry questions. And for philosophy, you can see that zero shot and few shot were more effective. And for law, chain of thought was the only successful technique. So yeah, we think that further study on prompt engineering, the impact of that on different subjects would be an interesting area. So we did have quite a few limitations with our experiment. The first being that the questions in the data set were all multiple choice questions. And although asking the LLM to explain its answers and produce long outputs, the outputs produced as a result of these questions will still be different from, say, if you asked it to write an essay, because you can't really verify the correctness of essays automatically. So ideally, we would have liked to test more than 4 prompting techniques as well. And to automate the process of using different prompting techniques for questions, we used an approach of appending text to the bottom of the prompt that would attempt to simulate that prompting technique. So for example, for rephrasing, you would append to the end of the prompt saying, rephrase this question in your own way, and then answer the following question, explaining your reasoning. We think that this process is not quite accurate to real use. And although ChatGPT is the most widely used LLM, we could have tested other LLMs. And the same goes for using Sapling AI as our AI detector as well. We could have tested against multiple AI detectors. Finally, we would have liked to run the experiment for a larger number of iterations with more subjects and more questions per subject, so we could be more confident in the results. One of the main limitations for that was tokens available for our AI detector API.
So I'm going to talk about the prospective research in AI detectors and prompting strategies. So basically, if we look ahead, there's a lot of quite exciting potential for improving how we use prompting techniques to make AI like more accurate and reliable, while cutting down on misinformation and hallucinations. So that's one promising approach, prompting, I think, is adaptive prompting, where AI kind of learns and adjusts its response in real time based on user feedback. So basically, you got an AI that actually gets better the more you use it, refining its answers to be more relevant and accurate over time. This could make AI way more useful in learning and professional settings. And another big step forward is context-aware prompting. This is where the AI combines what it already knows with external data and user-specific information. So basically, instead of getting a generic response, the AI could give you answers tailored to your exact needs, whether it's an academic paper or probably a like quite complex work task. And we also need to look at automated prompt optimization, where AI figures out the best way to frame a question or instruction to get the most accurate answer. Machine learning could help fine-tune the language used in prompts, leading to consistent and verifiable output. Plus, it could make AI harder to manipulate, which is a big deal for maintaining accuracy. And on the detection side, improving multi-layer detection systems will be key to telling human-generated content from AI-generated content. Combining techniques like statistical modeling, metadata tracking, and language analysis could make detection more accurate and harder to bypass. And another powerful tool is adversarial AI, basically training AI detectors alongside AI-generated content, so they can keep up with how language models evolve. It's like keeping the detection tools sharp by training them against the latest tricks. So finally, there's explainable AI, which is all about transparency. If AI-generated content is flagged, you would actually get an explanation for why it was flagged. That builds trust and help reduce false positives, which is super important for fair academic assessments. So in the end, like making AI work responsibly in education will take teamwork, which is researchers, educators, and policymakers need to come together to create clear guidelines. I think that's how we make sure AI helps with learning instead of becoming a shortcut learning.
For conclusion, our study examined whether prompting techniques influenced detection of AI-generated responses. While our study findings indicate the prompt engineering does not affect AI detection, where sapling AI consistently flagged with 99% of probability. However, prompting techniques impacted the accuracy, where, for example, zero-shot prompting excelling in chemistry and chain of thought / few-shot performing better in philosophy. These results highlight the importance of subject-specific prompt optimization while questioning the reliability of AI detection tools and differentiating responses generated using varied prompts. Future research should test additional LLMs, detection tools, and prompt strategies to further explore these findings as there's a wide variety of new generative AI and detection tools. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. More technical talk than some of them, but it was interesting. I'm glad you're able to automate some of that process. Hopefully Sapling AI aren't watching this, or this will be all over their marketing now to try and promote their tool. As always, if anyone in the audience or anyone watching has any questions, please feel free to post them into the chat for that. So I guess from my point of view that as you say, you focus mainly on multiple choice questions. So that will slightly have impacted the results. If you did focus on more, let's say, short answer questions, how do you think that would change the results of this study?
I think it probably wouldn't change the results too much, just because the output we got from the LLM was not even though the questions are multiple choice, it wasn't just outputting like A, B, that kind of thing. It would give a very long explanation. So if it was a maths question, it would show all of the workings out, that kind of thing. And then at the end, it was also asked to then output A, B, D, so it could be checked against the actual answer. I think it would be more interesting to check against maybe different types of questions that don't really have like a proper like true or false answer. So like write an essay on this, because I also feel like that's probably more likely an area people would use to cheat, would be to get it to write an essay for them rather than to get it to do all the kind of workings out, because that is kind of a set thing. Like there's a set way to work out a maths problem, but there's many ways you can write an essay.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, there's some of these. Oh, I heard a bit of an echo from something. At the same time, it's harder to test the accuracy of some of these things if you don't know what the correct answer is, which would be like you use law, which I presume none of you are law experts, unless I know something more about you. We've got a question in the chat from Robin, who's one of our AI detection experts here. Did you try using human-generated multiple choice answers?
We didn't. We only tested against the AI. I guess it would be quite difficult because the humans would normally not explain. I guess they'd have to write out their thought process as well and then supply an answer at the end. But I think that would be a really interesting thing to explore, because it's one thing to say that this sapling AI was really successful at detecting the AI generated answers, but perhaps if we did try it on human generated answers and it started flagging that as AI, that would also be, I think, an interesting result.
Yeah, and I mean, this may be me just clarifying the process, because it might have been useful just to have seen some of the prompts and some of the questions, because that helps to illustrate how this all works. But what did you feed into Sapling AI? Did you, because I presume you didn't just feed in the question and then the answer A, B, C, D. You must have fed a bit more into that to get that decision, because there wouldn't be enough text there otherwise.
It's the full output of the LLM, so it's piped directly into the so you enter the question into GPT, it provides you with an answer, and that answer goes directly into the sapling AI detector, and then that is detected for. AI use.
Okay. So that includes essentially all the thought process that's led up to that answer, which is going
Yes,
to be
yeah.
very AI styled. And so therefore that might be easier to detect, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a potential limitation, is that it's not, I guess it's not trying to write something that's in a different style. It's like always going to be doing the classic AI, like everyone's used ChatGPT and seen the way it explains things. So I guess that is kind of easier to detect, and that could perhaps be why we saw results like that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, perhaps the more interesting result, which is almost a side product, is the fact that the answers are wrong a lot of the time there, and ChatGPT, or I mean whichever pipeline you used, which had the GPT LLM, doesn't get the answer right a lot of the time, even for multiple choice questions. So that probably is more of a finding to communicate to students that if you use these techniques in certain subject areas, you may well not pass because you're going to get the wrong answers.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting thing we saw. It struggled more in some areas than others, and I thought it was also interesting that some prompting techniques were better in those more difficult areas, which is why we were saying that may be another research area to go into.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That is about right for time. But I think there's definitely research there someone else could take forward with a bit more time to work on this, bearing in mind this all moves so fast that sometimes this data is almost out of date by the time you publish it. But another, very interesting presentation. So thanks once again.
Thank you.
All right. And we will hand over now to our final group of this year's conference there. So let you bring yourselves to the screen. Hey, Alex.
Hello.
There. All right. Hey, Fergus. Hey, we've got everyone else there. Yeah, Yuzhen. And we got Ding Yuan. Yeah. There we go. So I will hand this over to you there, and I'll hide myself away. So I'm interested to hear a bit more about your analysis of policy.
Okay, thank you. So hi everyone, welcome to our talk on academic integrity policy analysis. And our research question was, to what extent does academic integrity policy differ between disciplines, and how can we go about standardizing it in higher education? And next slide, please. And the reason why we chose this project was it was quite interesting, or we were quite interested to see sort of the disparities between academic integrity policy and what a problem that caused. And specifically in the context of generative AI, it was quite interesting to see sort of the difference in interpretations. And then we also explored what methods had been done before to standardize it and the issues and potential solutions.
Right. So I kind of started with some initial research, trying to kind of cast a wide net over a lot of different academic integrity policies from a lot of different institutions, trying to find sort of trends, similarities and differences, both within the UK and also internationally. What kind of standards maybe existed on an informal level, i.e. kind of what a lot of people agreed on, and then kind of within that, their approaches to plagiarism, contract cheating, and most importantly, usage of generative AI. And also then extending that to within different disciplines. So the main thing that I found there was a lot of kind of differing policy on was generative AI, which makes sense considering it's kind of its recency and the recency of these academic integrity policies. So some policies made no mention of it, ones that were outdated in their kind of their handbooks that they would give to students or anything like that. Often there would be no particular mention of generative AI at all, which is obviously, very problematic. Some universities took a very kind of hard stance against it, a very solid kind of no no AI policy, placing it under stuff like false authorship or even kind of plagiarism with complete zero leniency policies. Whereas other universities could be a lot more forgiving of it and its usage as long as it was done transparently. So, with AI usage being very clearly conveyed, although there is still a point where exercises that forbid the use of generative AI must have been taken in person for the University of Singapore. They didn't think that any sort of AI detecting tools were sufficiently effective at detecting this AI usage. So even if it is being allowed, there still needs to be a degree of transparency. Some other institutions took a much more middle ground approach, some UK institutions, which will be discussed later. In general, though, a lot of the student-facing academic integrity policy focused on plagiarism particularly, which isn't by itself a negative. Plagiarism is one of the major kind of threats to academic integrity that has existed for as long as these academic institutions have existed. But what it can lead to is less awareness of other academic integrity kind of policies or potential dangers to it. For institutions that allow generative AI usage in their work, a lot of emphasis is placed on fact-checking the information that is provided by the generative AI, as falsified sources can be classed as plagiarism. And there's also a lot of kind of stuff put in about potentially, working on your prompts and making sure that the prompts are effective, and there potentially being a layer of skill in there. However, there's often a lot of differences that arise in the consequences behind the actual breaches of academic integrity. And this is where a lot of other differences arise, from warnings to suspensions to flat out expulsions, with no real kind of consistency across any institutions. Another big problem that I kind of discovered while doing this is that often academic integrity policy is not very student-facing accessible in finding it or understanding it. So, it can be difficult to find these policies and these documents on websites, but also when you do find these documents, often their wordings or kind of meanings can be difficult to necessarily completely kind of crystal clear cut it out in a way that could lead to kind of confusion or potential kind of misunderstanding of the text that's there.
Yeah, and my research was mainly more focused inside UK and focused on the different universities' policies against AI. And next slide, please. So first one is about, actually, Imperial College is actually one of those schools who is really strict with policies with AI. As we can see, our school doesn't allow any direct use of AI-generated response in the student's own work. And also, quotation from AI should actually be precisely cited and also clearly referenced, and only little or no credit will be given if you quote from AI directly. And we are not allowed to use AI for correcting grammar and generating ideas. And since that, developing writing skills and formulate ideas linguistically are also one of the aims of the written assessments designed by school. And using another student's work in part or in all are considered as plagiarisms, and no submission of AI-generated work or by translation app is allowed in our school. That is also considered as plagiarism. But for University College London and London School of Economics, they are pretty loose about the policies. Actually, they both allow students to use AI tools to help them to improve their written work, such as correcting the grammar or help them to generate ideas like stock. And also they are allowed to use AI to formulate the structure for the written work. The school thinks this is a acceptable way of using AI to improve their work. However, for University of College London, using AI's response in your written work is considered as plagiarism, since they consider AI are just making use of other human authors' ideas without referencing them. So this is considered as plagiarism and not allowed. And for London School of Economics, it is interesting that the policies actually varies from department by 3 positions. The first one is no authorized use of general AI at all, but the second one is limited use, and the third one, you actually full use of AI, and that is authorized. So this is the interesting part. And next slide, please.
However, although schools are actually emphasizing the word of independence, transparency, honesty, and integrity, they wish students develop skills of solving problems independently rather than relying on AI tools for all work. Also, some work are harder to detect whether AI is used or not. So school wish students could be honest with themselves and that can keep good academic integrity. So they actually wish students to keep transparent through the whole process of doing the written work or other kind of work like doing calculation questions or things like that. And next slide, please. And wait, I think my AIMM diagram that is fine, yeah. I think just can you get me the diagrams for the AIMM, please? Oh yeah, this one, yeah. So I also did some research on the AIMM in UK. So this is AIMM stands for Academic Integrity Measure Model, and it takes like 27 European countries in total, but I mainly focus on UK, so I took the graph of UK, and as we can see, UK actually scores pretty high. It scores 23.49 over 36 overall. That is ranking first out of the 27 countries. And this actually shows UK got pretty good academic integrity level comparing to other European countries. However, not all UK higher education institutions have transparent and fair institutional systems, so they still got a bit disadvantages. But in general, it's a pretty reliable result. And next slide, please. Yes, and in this diagram, we can see the comparison of the across 27 European countries on their academic integrity level, and the higher the better. And that's all for me.
So yes, I am going to introduce to everyone about some of the previous researches that focus on the attempt of standardizing academic integrity policies as well as giving an evaluation to them. There will be a lot of ideas that echoes with what Eugen and Ferguson had mentioned earlier. So first of all, this is a general view of like what type of researchers they are. Some of it take form in form of surveys. They survey normal students, normal teaching fellows, but also those specific policy enforcers, as well as some students who are considered as violators of academic integrity policy. And there are also different types of analysis, including some of the statistical analysis that tries to produce a standardized measurement to evaluate the effectiveness of different policies from different institutions and different realms of the academia. So there are also some comprehensive analysis based on culture, discipline, and demography factors, as well as the perception of peer behavior, which is very important. So moving on. So we are starting with the researches conducted in Western Canada. This is around like 2016 to 2020-ish. And there's a survey that focused on 228 students as well as 73 teaching fellows. So a lot of those people who took the survey, they suggested that there's a urgent need for clear and accessible understanding of the enforcement of policies, and they advocate for transparent procedures that could outline the institution's expectations as well as the consequences the student would face if they breach such policies. And it is very interesting that among 1/3 of the students who actually were charged for breaching the policies, they actually believe that they did not misconduct the policies and they were being mistreated. And it is very interesting because it suggests that it is very important to ensure that the students actually understand what they are being charged, why they are being charged, and the enforcement of the policy requires more transparency here. There are also some comprehensive analysis, and they suggest that in Canada, the policies generally had a punitive measure for academic misconduct, and the study found that details regarding educational resources and support systems aimed at enhancing the understanding of academic integrity among students and staffs were very limited. So moving on to Europe and UK. So yes,
there's one of the comprehensive analysis. It was from a doctoral thesis, actually explained the academic integrity maturity model, which is the one Yujin mentioned, the AIMM. And it basically its aim is to provide a benchmarking tool for all different institutions in different realm of the academia and to provide a basic evaluation of their policies. So it calculates a maturity profile for each country's studies based on 9 different metrics which are calculated from survey data. And one of the comprehensive analysis suggested that again, there's a lack of transparency when such policies are being enforced. And there are other issues such as the constant amendment of the standard policy without proper introduction to the student population. Things are changing very fast, and the students need constant update to those changes with policies. There are also studies that focuses on the students. They said demography analysis, including analyzing the ethnicity, income, gender, and age with various student groups that breached the academic integrity policy. There were not limited correlations between the demography factors. However, there is a very strong correlation with the prevalence of contract cheating, especially when students they are in a group and they realize their peers are behaving in such ways. And students who believe that their peers frequently engage in cheating are more likely to participate in such behaviors. So moving on. Yes, we want to mention specifically the research of contract cheating because in Canada, which is where I'm from, there's only one university in Windsor, Canada that specifically explained the term contract cheating and the corresponding punishments in their policy. Most other institutions and some of the not only in Canada but also some in UK and Europe actually categorizes uh, contract cheating under a broader term, plagiarism, which is not necessarily wrong, but contract cheating requires more specific treatment. And this was once a challenge, especially last decade, for universities. Because they want students to produce authentic work rather than just paying other people to do their work for them. And this was a issue, and there was once lacking in standardized policies against contract cheating. However, as time passed, there are more and more universities from different regions that come together to attempt to standardize their policy against contract cheating, which is very similar to the situation or the circumstances we are facing now regarding artificial intelligence, especially those generative AI that are helping students to cheat. Yes.
So my area looked at the challenges with the standardization processes. So that links into what Adrian was saying. So next slide, please. And this section, I did it in the context of organizations. So on an international basis, you have the International Center for Academic Integrity, which advocates since its founding in 1992 for the standardization in academic integrity policy. And it does this by proposing a list of fundamental values of academic integrity for institutions to adopt. And the challenges they may have faced were the cultural differences between the nations and lack of engagement from institutions due to the desire for their own autonomy. Thank you. And then looking more specific areas of the world, the EU and the US. In the EU, you have the Erasmus Plus program, which supports education and training and makes effort to promote academic integrity across the EU. But because it's a conglomerate of many different nations, they have difference and diversity in education and legal systems, in academic traditions, and the lack of standard enforcement strategies. And in the US, their 1965 Higher Education Act provides guidelines to support universities in developing AI policies. But the challenges they face was, again, the desire for autonomy and also concerns with privacy, where it was a question between protecting student privacy and enforcing academic integrity policy. And then in Australia, you have the organisation Universities Australia, which is a national collaboration between Australian institutions to standardise the policy. And again, the enforcement strategies were not also standardised, which leaves it up to the universities. But also the rise of online learning meant that they weren't able to properly ensure academic integrity. And then finally, for the UK, you have the Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education, which provides a baseline academic integrity policy for institutions to adopt. They also have an advisory group that informs the Quality Assurance Agency on developing the academic integrity policy. But again, this problem of institutional autonomy makes it not compulsory to adopt, but also the institutions can adapt them and therefore stray too far from the baseline policy. And so the general issues we discussed were the cultural differences between countries, between institutions, but also even within institutions, especially in the UK where diversity of student population is quite high. The enforcement strategies not being standardized also poses a problem. And just like AI, the developing technology makes it difficult to make an all-encompassing policy. The general understanding of academic integrity is limited to plagiarism, which can introduce bias in acceptance of a standardized policy. The institutional and student union autonomy we've discussed, and then also differences between the practices of arts and sciences in academic traditions mean that in academic integrity policy could cause ambiguity. And then potential solutions are to make a legal mandate for a baseline academic integrity policy, but to maintain some level of autonomy, institutions may wish to add to, but not subtract. And again, one big problem is the lack of standardized enforcement strategy, so make sure that's included in the policy. And again, we can call back on this QAA to review the policy every 5 years or so to integrate technological advancements. And then one big idea we had was to have a cross-faculty interactive session towards the start of university life, where students in groups come up with their own definition of academic integrity, and therefore this can provide an understanding of the difficulties in proposing a policy, and also it means that transparency in what these policies are is better.
All right, and just to conclude, often across this whole kind of project, we discovered there are a lot of underlying similarities with academic integrity policies, but there isn't an exact standardization. That's something that, is not easily found or achieved, but because of these differences, particularly with regards to generative AI, that would need to be resolved. It's difficult to create this effective standardization as shown by all of these attempts at it, but there are steps that can be taken by both individuals and establishments in order to improve the understanding and communication on these policies and closer reach this standardization that we're aiming for. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Nice enthusiastic delivery there, considering it's quite late in the day. And I'm sure the Canadians who have joined us appreciate the mention of policy in Canada as well, there to bring that in. So if anyone has any questions, as always, please do go ahead and put them in the chat. We've got one here from Peter. Yeah, interesting question. Did you draw any conclusions about the use of academic integrity as a term as opposed to academic misconduct as the term, and that outside AG, that is somehow translated to cheating? And have you any views on what that means to students? Yeah, so great question. I'll hand that over to you.
I'm happy to kind of take that one. So often I think that institutions kind of shy away from the term academic misconduct just because of the kind of the psychological effects of kind of of stigmatizing this kind of this language about academic integrity. It can be something that can kind of shut students off to interfacing with it and to kind of understanding the policy that's put in place. They see it much more as a kind of aggressive shutting down of potential creativity or anything like that. And so I think often these terms are kind of used in order to try and create this interface, trying to create this understanding of the policy with the students. Whereas, outside of that, the phrase cheating can be used a lot more because of the kind of the lack of necessary kind of needing to interface and understand with it, I would suppose.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. And I mean, one thing I think you're looking at a bit more, we didn't come across completely in the discussion, was how the policies and approaches differ between different academic disciplines. Is there anything you want to say particularly related to that area?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, we didn't have a kind of chance to fit it into the presentation, but a lot of the stuff that kind of comes up between different academic disciplines is about how, different academic disciplines approach work and how strict they are on this stuff. So often stuff like STEM, medicine, all of these things have very strict academic integrity policies because there needs to be there is very much a kind of a strict adhesion to rules and to making sure that these scientific things are correct and exact. Whereas in something more creative, where there is less kind of I suppose less precision, there can be more kind of interfacing with something like generative AI in a more creative manner, something like humanities or social sciences, where writing is more kind of expressive and stuff like that, where generative AI could potentially be used in order to kind of further that kind of research. That was the kind of the main divide that I found was between the more sciencey and the more humanities side of things. Is that just in general there is a kind of a split between strictness and more leniency, I suppose.
Yeah, thanks. And you've got a really interesting makeup of people in your group, being split between the School of Medicine and the Department of Mathematics. So, I mean, is there anything particularly related to academic integrity in maths that is interesting to share? Because that's one of the areas that I think least about and which would be really fascinating to hear about.
Yeah, so basically a lot of the conversation around academic integrity in maths, which is what I study, is about the use of generative AI and its effectiveness at being able to communicate mathematical concepts. You'd think that a computer would potentially be very effective at being useful in kind of breaching academic integrity in mathematics. But often what can be found is that once you get to these higher levels of mathematics, a lot of it becomes much more linguistic, much more kind of about proofs, which is something that I've found kind of in my own kind of experimentation. Generative AI is a lot less comfortable with dealing with. It's very good at performing calculations in a way that a computer is very good at performing calculations, but it's much less good at following kind of through lines of logic and proof in a mathematical setting, I suppose. So although there are very kind of strict academic integrity policies in place in the mathematical department, just because of the kind of the speed, I suppose, that a lot of these models are kind of progressing at, there are marked changes in how well it is kind of interfacing with mathematical content. It's still something that is definitely not completely effective currently, but very much could be in the future.
Yeah, thanks. And I guess to just round off the questions and round off that session, let's ask that same question in regards to medicine, because that would be a good way to bring things close. Another area I know don't know as much about as some other subjects.
Yeah, it's quite a good question. In medicine, I would say that the difficulty in academic integrity is that it's not as cut and dry as other subjects such as maths or computer science. And so academic integrity is less based around like cheating and more about morality. because you've got the problem of if you don't uphold academic integrity in your examinations and in your training, then you have wider impacts on other people and on patients. And so you have that to consider in academic integrity policy as well. And generative AI is sort of it's interesting in medicine because you can use it quite a lot to sort of practice, and there are websites such as Geeky Medics that uses AI so you can practice your OSCE stations, but which can be tailored in a medical context, which makes it less likely to be incorrect. But then again, where do you draw the line between using AI in medicine? And also you have the worry that if you hand over, say, radiology or surgery to an AI, then how do you know it's done correctly without a human?
Yeah, I don't know. As a computer scientist, and I see people working on that side of the problem all the time, but I suspect I'm probably closer to you, Alex, in my view on that one. But yeah, I think that's a perfect point for us to end. So thank you so much for sharing those thoughts on academic integrity and policies. And I'd like to say a special thank you as well to everybody who's joined us today. And many of you have been here throughout the entire conference there. I mean, I really appreciate if anyone of the audience wants to feed anything back to me, feel absolutely free as well. But I think we had some, a combination of really interesting ideas, a few bits of work in progress that could lead to some interesting work in the future as well for that. But at this point, we will close off for another year of the Academic Integrity Student Research Conference. Thanks once again to Turnitin for supporting the event, and hope you found this interesting and useful. So thank you for now.